at PCH.com.
Entries due 4/28. No purchase necessary. Void or prohibited.
And now a small business setback is assessed by a beloved family pediatrician.
Oh, hey, Tiger. Big scary tree branch give your work truck a boo-boo? Yeah. Wow. See this thing on my phone here? It's the Progressive mobile app. Just push that little button there and report your claim. Attaboy.
When owning a small business gets painful, Progressive Commercial is here to make it all better. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
What's this? Candy drawer? Who wants a lollipop?
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Covered subject to policy terms and conditions. Photo claims not available in all states or situations.
Now in the Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 6:03. We are expecting a nice day today. Partly sunny skies. Our high today will be about 58 degrees. We'll finally try to clear out today. Get some dry time as well. Clear tonight with a low near 34 degrees. Good morning, everyone. And here's some of the stories that we are working on for you in this 6 o'clock hour. Columbia's police chief will be traveling to Jefferson City today to discuss public safety with Missouri's Governor Mike Parson. The governor's spokeswoman, Kelly Jones, tells 93.9 The Eagle this afternoon's meeting will take place at the Capitol. It will be a closed meeting today. The governor and Chief Jones will also be discussing solutions for the law enforcement workforce. Columbia voters approved a use tax earlier this month. It's expected to generate about $5.6 million annually in additional revenue. The city finance director, Matthew Lewis, said Columbia could fund and maintain 7 new firefighters and 8 new police officers with that use tax revenue. Again, the governor, Chief Jones, meet today in a closed meeting at the State House, Jefferson City. Meantime, a convicted Columbia murderer who was sentenced to 40 years in prison blasted his attorney in open court during Friday's sentencing hearing, saying he did a horrible job, and that is a direct quote. I was in the courtroom when he said that on video. 56-year-old David Myers was convicted of second-degree murder for the 2020 death of his neighbor, Anthony Lockwood. Family members of Myers and Lockwood were in the courtroom. Security very tight at the Boone County Courthouse. The mother of Lockwood took the witness stand. She said Lockwood wanted to be a good dad, will be missed. Defense attorney David Kirshner says Myers thought he'd been killed or seriously injured by Lockwood that day. Lockwood stabbed 6 times in the back. His body also dragged across a gravel road. A Columbia man is under indictment this morning. First-degree murder, the March shooting death of his father on Pinecrest Drive. A Boone County grand jury indicting 21-year-old Samuel Brotherton on Friday afternoon. It was unsealed on Friday. First-degree murder and armed criminal action. The victim in this case, Brotherton's father, 64-year-old Roland Thompson of Columbia. A prominent Columbia area developer hopes you'll be able to see movies soon at Lakeside Ashland by this summer. The movie screen has been put up. Crews will soon add electric to the site. Some call it a drive-in, but developer Nick Parks is preferring a different term, outdoor movie theater.
But most people will pull into a parking spot and walk up into a very large lawn, and they'll watch the movie from the lawn.
Okay.
And so we have to have a lawn. We've decided to put sod in, so you've got to do that. You got to have 5-6 weeks for the roots to before people can walk on it.
Parks tells 93.9 The Eagle CEO Roundtable that he expects the screen panels to be installed by May. Other attractions will include a 700-foot-long zip line, will take you 130 feet over the lake there at Lakeside Ashland. They're also considering adding a Ferris wheel. Parks was recently in Florida looking at Ferris wheels there. And an award-winning documentary involving autism and the first man ever diagnosed with autism in the United States will be shown this evening in Columbia. It will be shown at 5:15. That's when the doors open. The movie itself begins at 6, Forum Christian Church. The event is free. Mizzou professor of child health, Dr. Kristen Soul, says the documentary highlights the power of what a community can do to support people who think differently.
And then it also walks us through how other people with autism may have different levels of support, and yet how we as community members, as people who maybe are at the grocery store or who work at a restaurant, can understand and better think about how a person with autism might experience their community.
Tonight's event is sponsored by Echo Autism Communities. That is part of the University of Missouri. She says community support is critical to those who have autism. We've included a link to the film's trailer along with the story on our website. It's 939theeagle.com. Our news is brought to you in the 6 o'clock hour by AirServe Heating and Air Conditioning, ensuring the air in which you live and breathe is comfortable and clean. For all of your cooling and heating needs, log on to airserve.com. 93.9 The Eagle News Time is 6:07. In sports, Seattle beat the Royals Sunday in 12 innings out west. 5-4 was the final score there. The Royals are off today. They're back in action tomorrow. Reds beat the Cardinals Sunday at Great American Ballpark 4-1. That snaps an 11-game losing streak for the Reds. They'd really been struggling. Came alive yesterday. Adam Wainwright falls to 2-2 on the year. It's a good article on the Cardinals website, cardinals.com, and Adam Wainwright admits the Reds, I should say, have always had his number. He has always struggled pitching at Great American Ballpark. 2-2 on the year, 4-1 final score. Cardinals out hit 8-7 yesterday. Just couldn't get runs across the plate. Tommy Pham, 2 hits, 2 RBIs for the Reds. St. Louis finally returns to Busch Stadium tonight. 3-game series beginning with the Mets tonight. First pitch, 6:45, 93.9. The Eagle. Our sports is brought to you this hour by Tiger Towing. When you can't get going, call Tiger Towing, 573-449-3754, tigertowing.com. 93.9 The Eagle News Time is 6:08. All right, John, thank you. Right now in Columbia, we do have clear skies. It's 6:09. Traffic check with MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com to find a job or to post your job opening today. Roads right now are pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you want to report a traffic issue, give us a call or a text. Our number, 573-874-9390. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes. We have breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Hillsworth, the 93.9 The Eagle.
Part of our commitment going forward involves a number of things that I was able to share with President Zelensky yesterday, including the return of American diplomats to Ukraine starting next week, including President Biden's intent to nominate a new ambassador to Ukraine, Ambassador Bridget Brink, currently an ambassador, someone I've served with for a long time.
That's U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. Following him in Defense, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. Going to not necessarily Ukraine, but they're kind of hanging around the Poland-Ukraine border over the weekend, and some of the movement they've made. They said, well, we're going to put some folks back in. We're going to put some folks back in the embassy here, and said it was an engaging session. We've expressed our deepest condolences, and that is really about it. But some action on part of the United States there with what's going on in Ukraine. Gas still $3.89 a gallon. By the way, so Missouri has some of the cheapest fuel prices in the country. In the state of Missouri, Boone County has some of the highest gas prices in the cheapest average state in the United States of America. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay.
I'm with you.
It is 6:10 on a Monday morning, dude.
So if we're looking at the 58 states in America, Missouri has some of the lowest fuel prices. And if we look at how many counties in Missouri? 114?
114. St. Louis City extra.
So if we're looking at the 115 government entities, county government entities, in effect, Boone County has the most expensive gas on average, according to AAA Missouri. Incidentally, that's what folks are already talking about via text this morning. Not travel issues, Brian. I don't want to get you excited. 874-9390. Will Boone County, being so short-staffed, can they pass off some of the road maintenance work to one of the many reputable construction companies we have in the area? The potholes on the Highway 70 bridge over Cedar Creek are bad enough to cause a 10 axle dump truck rear axles to leave the road at 70 miles an hour. I'm sure it's quite startling to unknowing truck drivers. So, see, those are dinner table issues.
They really are. And keep in mind, the letter roads are the responsibility of MoDOT. The county crews are involved in that as well, but MoDOT is in charge of the letter routes, which they have always said has added more miles to them. And they do sometimes they will subcontract out to other people, but primarily on the potholes, they will do that themselves. They've got about $18 million budgeted for that, but they're just overwhelmed right now.
We didn't even really have that bad of a winter.
I don't know. I think it was the back and forth, maybe. It was like for a while there, for a few weeks, we had cold and snow, and then it would warm up right away and then get cold again. So, the winter maybe wasn't that bad, but it was just the back and forth.
In February was rough. It was rough. We did have several storms, but it's the biggest thing they want people to do is call that 888-ASK-MoDOT number, and also they want people to fill out a form online, which I've had to do, but they're just behind.
And in Boone County's defense, I was all over Illinois this weekend, and their potholes are equally as bad.
So did you report a pothole, or did you have some damage? Because MoDOT can, in very, very tight circumstances, by the way, if you hit a pothole and it causes damage to your car in a very extremely narrow set of circumstances, the state could potentially pay you for damage to your car from a pothole. Is that what you filed a complaint for?
Not about the damage to a car, although I'm sure it didn't do the car any good. But I wanted to make them aware of it so it didn't, and they get it fixed. Really, the biggest problem area to me that I see, because I drive it every day, is right out here at 63 in Grindstone.
That exit,
the exits, both of them, and I've let them know, and they've done some work, but it's not totally repaired.
Well, I think we're at the point now, and I ain't no road engineer, but some of these, like the exit off of 63 southbound onto Grindstone, like it just needs to be redone. I think there's a lot of our roads in Columbia. We got Stadium done last year, and that's nice. But we just need a new coat of paint on this whole town, really, and it starts with roads. And I'm, for one, ready to raise your taxes to make that happen, he said facetiously. So that's what folks talking about already. We should do a pothole patrol. Whatever you're seeing really bad potholes, let us know. We've got the 63 exit ramp on the Grindstone. We've got that covered because it affects us, right?
Well, here's the other thing is with FFA in town on Friday and Saturday, it affected so many people, and I could see people in front of me and behind me. I could hear it, and it's a crashing noise when they go over that. So that affects a lot of people. There's obviously many more areas than that, but they're even on I-70. They're just everywhere. But I think the biggest message from MoDOT is don't just assume when you see that they know they want you to call, but also to fill out the form online.
And then I bet somebody's answering that hotline going, my God, I wish these people would quit calling. We know about the potholes on the 63 southbound exit onto Grindstone. Welcome into the show. Something we can do for you, 874-9390. Also off the text, Stuart. Seems like the potholes were never fixed from last year. Chief Jeff Jones and the governor are going to be meeting today. What is this about?
This is going to be a private meeting. Probably the right term instead of private would be a closed meeting. I talked to Kelly Jones yesterday evening about this. They will meet this afternoon at the Capitol, Brandon, in Jefferson City. Time is not being released at this point, but essentially they're going to be talking about public safety, and they're going to be talking about law enforcement workforce. We don't know the details of that. That's obviously confidential, but they will be discussing items. Maybe the chief will have more to say later today. We'll see. But I do know that one of the things that was said in the use tax press conference I covered with Matthew Liu, and the chief was not there, but he said if folks approve the use tax, which they did, he said Columbia would have enough money to fund and maintain 8 new police officers with the use tax revenue. That doesn't mean they're going to do that. It means they would have the money to do so. But Columbia's short of officers, there's no doubt. And they'll be, I'm sure, talking about maybe some of the recent crime we've had here in Columbia.
And I think the other issue, okay, we have money for it. Nobody wants to be in police enforcement right now. They really don't, because what these national news outlets did in going after cops. Oh, my God, the cop shot a black guy. Cops are evil. And they've pushed that, and they have pushed that, and defund the police and all that. By the way, coming up, I think at 7:35 this morning, defund police movements in cities across America that have tried this. Minneapolis is one example. They're sheepishly going, hey, so, defund the police. Kind of like y'all said. You said this was not going to work. You were right.
And we're saying, I told you so.
Now, are you going to write that down, Brandon, at 7:35?
7:35, defund police not working in Minneapolis and other places. It's almost like these people, it's like the conversations and stuff. Brian Han, maybe you've had those with your parents where, your parents would always tell you stuff when you were young. Whatever, I'm 14, I know more than you, Dad. I'm 18 now, I know the secret to life. And then as you get older and wiser, you get into your 30s, and then you have those conversations with your parents. Hey, Dad, remember when you told me you were right? That's what's happening with all these in these cities where the defund the police movement, these people are sheepishly coming back and saying, man, that was dumb. That was a really dumb idea. Take money from the people who are here to protect and serve. It's like that conversation. You were right, man. You were right, Dad. And he didn't gloat either. But I'm going to gloat over these defund movement stuff here on 93.9 The Eagle and 93.9 TheEagle.com. Well, I think it's so interesting that Chief Jeff Jones is going to be meeting with the governor. There's a piece today in the Columbia Daily Tribune working with the Kansas City Star. By the way, whenever we hear about, you ever hear about fist violence or foot violence? Like when we see people that get beat up by mobs of thugs, and we see the fists, and because they usually don't fight one-on-one. These thugs, they attack. It's group style.
No, I've never heard those terms.
Yeah, I've never heard the phrase fist violence or foot violence, or if somebody gets stabbed. I didn't hear this poor mom in New York, who, by the way, was killed by an illegal immigrant. I've never heard the phrase knife violence. Why does everybody use the phrase gun violence? We don't use knife violence, fist violence, foot violence.
Because the liberals are really good at messaging.
Giddy up, cowgirl. So they're doing this Missouri gun violence project, despite the fact we never hear knife violence. Picked up by the Columbia Daily Tribune, and they're focusing on Columbia specifically. And I don't want to say the article is poor. The people who are trying to do this stuff, they just don't get it. There is one person who's quoted in the article, everybody, the cities, the schools, the hospitals, the churches need to get on board. And sadly enough, we do this all the time. We do it a couple of times a year. There's a spate of shootings. All of a sudden, people take signs and they march through downtown, and we hear it talked about in the churches on Sunday morning, and we hear the schools are talking about it, and the parents and people get on the TV, and I'm angry. The violence has to stop. We got to stop this, and we got to do stuff. Yeah, you're right. And we have done all that stuff. It does not work. It doesn't work because we have been doing that. The other cries in this article, we need to invest more in social services to address the root causes of violence like poverty and housing insecurity. The problem is whenever they say, well, we need to, the root cause is poverty and housing security, their answer is, and we're seeing it in St. Louis now, just give them money. Social services typically have what caused these issues in the first place. You talk to people. I always go back to our conversation with the decorated civil rights activist Shelby Steele. Said the worst thing that has ever happened to black people in the modern era is what Democrats did in the 60s. You're poor. We want to rectify this. Here's money. And started handing out money, started handing out services. Nobody had to work to do anything to improve themselves professionally or morally or personally. We've got money coming in. The government's going to give me money every week. So when community members, they get up and say, we need to invest more in social services to address the root causes of violence like poverty and housing insecurity. We have done that stuff, and it doesn't work. You look at what happens. The biggest issue, number one, and by the way, then they start talking to Tracy Wilson Kleekamp, who is the worst. She is the most racist person I know of. Here's more proof. She is quoted, we only talk about violence when it affects downtown. Not accurate. And when I think of downtown, I think of white property interest. And she says it, when I think of it, I think of white property interest. Nobody else thinks that way. Well, that's white property interest. That's the black part. She thinks that way. Coming up, going to be doing the daily DC rundown with Stephanie Bell. What's underneath the circus tent this morning?
Big case hitting SCOTUS today.
All right, we're going to cover that here on 93.9 The Eagle and 93.9theeagle.com, where you can listen live. You can also watch on the YouTube.
This is Wake Up Columbia, featuring Brandon Rathert on 93.9 The Eagle.
Joe Kennedy was an assistant high school football coach at Bremerton High, but was told by school officials to stop publicly praying after games. They cited policy against indirectly encouraging students to engage in religious activity.
And this is what's coming before the Supreme Court of the United States. That gets us into today's Daily D.C. Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Not the first religious freedom case to hit this term. We've got, newer justices, and so all eyes are on the courts. But already this term, there was an 8-1 decision, so most people agreed. And that was the one where the Texas death row inmate who sought to have his pastor pray aloud with him and touch him as the execution was carried out. That case was, kind of decided in favor of prayer. But all eyes are on this one. Obviously, there are some different things implicated, but for the praying coach, he's arguing, it's his freedom of speech and freedom of religion, although the school district is now arguing that, his freedom of speech is kind of infringing on the students' freedom of speech. So it's like freedom of religion. So you've kind of got people on both sides kind of arguing the same thing, or on different sides arguing the same freedom.
Who's triggered less is almost what it comes down to, the way I see it. And listen, the law says, organize religion in schools. And one of the arguments from this coach is saying, I've been doing it privately. I quit leading kids in prayer. I do it privately. But then when you get into school, it's like, okay, the coach does it, peer pressure, all the other kids going to do it. It'd be interesting to see how this comes out. That's why it goes before SCOTUS. There's no easy answer.
There isn't an easy answer, and it's going to be several months at least before we have any answers. But all of the court watchers will kind of dissect the argument today and the various questions. So we might have some hint on where the justices are generally, but it'll be a while before we know the final answer.
I like this because this is one of those things where we'll play Monday morning quarterback before the game's even been played.
That's right. Another interesting issue that's coming up, I guess Governor Stitt in Oklahoma is getting some attack ads on him because he has been part of the criminal justice reform movement. We've talked here about how more Republicans are kind of in there, but now it's not only Democrats who are being targeted for being soft on crime. Apparently now Republicans are being targeted for this. And I think that's really interesting as we've seen more and more Republicans join the criminal justice reform movement. How this shakes out, I think, is important for the future of the party.
Will it help him or will it hurt him? It's one of the stories happening this morning in the Daily DC Rundown. Coming up, the far left is getting so desperate. You got to see some of these fact checks they're trying to disprove. Was it a bird that pooped on Joe Biden or not? And it continues to get worse. We have that coming up 6:35. I have your ABC 17 storm track forecast. Sunshine close to 60 today. Right now it is 48. Make sure you stop by Club Car Wash. You can get an unlimited membership, $20 a month. Get more details, clubcarwash.com. You can also find the location nearest you.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has met with Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. Fox's Matt Finn in Lviv, Ukraine.
Zelensky posted to social media that he is grateful to the United States of America for, quote, unprecedented help. And American diplomats will be returning to Ukraine in a couple days, with the U.S. Embassy expected to reopen its embassy in Kyiv in the coming weeks.
President Biden's nominating Bridget Brink as ambassador to Ukraine. Former President Trump removed the previous ambassador 3 years ago. Emmanuel Macron's re-elected president of France, promising to work toward unity.
Which is the only way through which we can live happier in France and overcome the challenges that will come in the coming years.
Macron again defeats his right-wing opponent, Marie Le Pen. He's the first French president in 20 years to win a second term. He beat Le Pen before in 2017. America's listening to Fox News.
And now winning local news coverage with Brian Houseworth on 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 6:31 right now. We do have clear skies. We are expecting a nice day today. Our high of around 58 degrees. Good morning, everyone. And here's some of the stories that we are working on for you in this 6 o'clock hour. Jefferson City police say 9 people on a church bus sustained injuries when it crashed Sunday afternoon at Highway 54 and 179. JCBD investigators say all 9 passengers are from Keokuk, Iowa. The 7 hurt sustained moderate injuries. They say the bus driver was driving too fast for the conditions. Missouri's governor and Columbia's police chief Jeff Jones meet this afternoon in Jefferson City. They'll talk about the issue of public safety. The governor's spokeswoman Kelly Jones tells 93.9 The Eagle the governor and the chief will meet at the Capitol. It will be a closed meeting. They'll also discuss solutions for the law enforcement workforce. An autism program affiliated with the University of Missouri is sponsoring the free showing tonight of an award-winning documentary about autism. It's called In a Different Key, the movie. It'll be shown tonight, 6 o'clock, Columbia's Forum Christian Church. Mizzou professor Dr. Kristen Soul is executive director of Echo Autism Communities. They're sponsoring tonight's event.
We can both learn more about autism, so what the symptoms are, and we can learn a lot about how we can work and embrace people who think differently than us.
The two filmmakers will also be on hand to answer your questions tonight. Saturday's Bowling for Autism event in Columbia raised more than $30,000. Additional numbers are still being calculated. News brought to you this hour by MidAmericaMortgage.us. 93.9 The Eagle News Time is 6:33. In sports, it was Seattle beating the Royals Sunday in 12 innings, 5-4. The final there. The Royals are off today, so no Royals baseball today. The Reds beat the Cardinals Sunday 4-1. Great American Ballpark. Reds have really been struggling. They had lost 11 straight heading into Sunday's game. Finally turned it around. Adam Wainwright now 2-2 on the year. He's always struggled against the Reds. Tommy Pham had 2 RBIs for Cincinnati. St. Louis finally returning to the Busch Stadium confines tonight. 6:45 is the first pitch. 93.9 The Eagle as they start a 3-game series with the New York Mets. That means the pregame coverage with Kevin Wheeler and KMOX through the Cardinals Baseball Network will start at 5:45 tonight, right here on 93.9 The Eagle. Our sports is brought to you in the 6 o'clock hour by the Better Business Bureau. Businesses can join and sign up right now, bbb.org. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 6:34. Traffic check, MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com to find a job or to post your job opening today. Roads have been pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you want to report a traffic issue, you can give us a call or a text. Our number is 573-874-9390. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes, and we have breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
First off, folks, let me be very clear tonight. The election in 2020 was and all the madness we see from the Biden administration, 2 million illegals, rising gas prices, unbelievable inflation, the brink of war. All that started right here in Georgia when our governor caved and allowed radical Democrats to our election.
Now we're going to be banned. For sure, banned.
I blinked it.
Was that like Master Bleep Theater?
I think so.
Well, kind of. So there's a game we've played over the years here on 93.9 The Eagle. We do Master Bleep Theater. We take like some of the most iconic movie scenes of all time and we bleep out words that aren't bad, but because you hear the bleep, your mind, it's not our fault, it's your brain's fault, thinks automatically that they're bad words, and they're not. But here, it is like Master Bleep Theater, because there's no bad words being said here.
The election in 2020 was and all.
So can we get booted for that, Hannah, from YouTube?
I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
So that's from a debate last night. Former Senator David Perdue in Georgia running against the incumbent last night. That's how he led off the debate. Just thought it was interesting. By the way, he trails in the polls, and it's worth noting former Senator David Perdue is endorsed by Trump, and he trails ahead of that race. Welcome to the show. This is Wake Up Columbia. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. Brian Houseworthy is here.
Good to see you.
By the way, great work. I had an opportunity to go to this Bowling for Autism event over the weekend. The place was packed, lane after lane, people bowling to raise money for autism research.
It was great. I'm glad to see you there, Brandon. It was a great turnout. Zimmer Radio, of course, was the media sponsor, one of them, along with Channel 17. And you're right, every lane packed, big turnout. They've raised 30,000 plus. We know it'll be more than that. We'll get the final numbers from John Cleek. But the announcement was made towards the end that from here on out, that event will be known as the Cleek Bowling for Autism event in honor of John Jr. and the late Tiger John Cleek as well. And that got a huge round of applause from the audience.
By the way, if you ever get an opportunity to bowl with or against Brian Houseworth, don't do it. He's pretty good. He's pretty good.
We had someone ask on the Wake Up Columbia Facebook page, Brandon, if you wore bowling shoes.
No.
Or if you just opted for your flip-flops.
Houseworth, how did I show up?
Flip-flops.
Did you bowl?
No.
Oh, come on.
It's a spectator sport for me.
He was there in support, though, but yeah, he had flip-flops.
There are some pictures posted on the Wake Up Columbia Facebook page, and I wanted to pass this along to you. I thought it was pretty cool. We were hanging out with some of the folks from ABC 17, and I don't know why on earth I was on Twitter Saturday morning, because
what?
Right? And saw Deborah Kendrick, who's the evening time anchor for ABC 17. She had a shout-out from former Chiefs All-Pro wide receiver Tyreek Hill. And she posted, oh, look, Tyreek Hill's giving me a shout-out. And he mentioned something about Deborah, but not necessarily Deborah Kendrick. So I asked her, I'm like, was that really for you? And she's like, yeah, Tyreek Hill was giving Deb Kendrick, evening time anchor at ABC 17 in Columbia, Missouri, a shout-out.
Which is really neat. I'm glad you had a chance to talk to her. He was in Jefferson City on Friday afternoon at the Toyota dealership. He had committed to doing that when he played at the Chiefs. They weren't sure he was going to continue to go, but he did. And he has been known. There's a restaurant in town, I won't name it, that they say that he comes through town several times and has eaten there. And he's had his hair cut here in Columbia. So Tyreek Hill.
Hold up just a second. Yeah. So now everybody's which restaurant, right?
Right.
That's where which restaurant can you not say? I'm sorry. Go on.
I know he's probably been at several, but he's had his hair cut here, so he must come through town several times. In this case, he was in Jefferson City, but that was really neat that Deborah Kendrick had a chance to do that, and he also talked to the media down in Jeff City, too.
And I think there were a lot of elected officials at that event in Jeff City, and I think was it Chris Jones? There's another Chiefs player there as well.
Chris Jones, yes, I think the defensive player.
And I think it was also cool, and I think that says, and I know Tyreek has kind of dabbled in trouble allegedly, just a little bit over the years, but what a great move! You don't even play in Missouri anymore, and to keep a commitment like that. I think that's huge that you would do that. You know, you could be in the sexy confines of Miami right now, living it up, and he was here in mid-Missouri,
in Jeff City, and signing autographs, meeting with the kids. I mean, at the Toyota dealership, and it was a big deal. He said he had made a commitment and he wanted to fulfill it. It's a big deal, too, because that is the same dealership that got hit by the tornado in 2019. It was, the damage, it was basically destroyed.
Yeah, that was the infamous video on the Wake Up Columbia Facebook page of those cars just somebody had taken a forklift and set those cars, stacked them neatly on top of each other. It was astounding. There's Hannah, the producer.
Good morning.
How was your weekend, kiddo?
It was good. I got to do some shopping with my mom on Saturday, and then yesterday was spent packing up my apartment.
That's the worst, honestly.
I haven't even been there for a full year, and I feel like I've accumulated so much crap.
You texted me about how much stuff you had, and I know I have more stuff than you. Because I'm older, it kind of accumulates. And when you were texting me, I thought, you know what? If I never had to move again, I would be okay.
Right.
And my name is Brandon Rather. There's something we can do for you. 874-9390. 874-9390.
Look at what you just stepped in.
You are about to enter the no zone.
This is the O'Reilly Factor with Brandon Rather.
Yes, I hit Brandon with a stick.
All right, welcome into the O'Reilly Factor. That's where we take what people say and then we run it through the BS meter to see how accurate or inaccurate it is. And we're doing it a little bit differently today. Stephanie had a great idea. She said, you know what? I've been checking out some of these fact checks, and they are really, really stretching right now. to try to find anything they can do to make Joe, not even to make him look good, but to make him look not as bad.
Well, and now I feel, because I said one of these on air, and now they're saying it's untrue. So I'm like, are they trying to fact check me? Because I watched the video.
So here's one of the fact checks several months ago was, did Joe, so there is some, apparently a hot mic caught Joe Biden apparently utilizing his pants as a bathroom. And there was a fact check. Did Joe Biden crap his pants or not? There was a fact check on that to try to make him not look so bad. And it's stretching. So one of the latest fact checks from PolitiFact is one that this the Subway shooter, Frank R. James, it's been lenient leftist justice reform policies in the past that let him be out there. And what's interesting is the guy has an incredible criminal history. He has a very lengthy criminal history. But these people in the national news outlets so desperate. But it wasn't progressive policies that had him out on the streets. And yeah, he did commit a whole bunch of crimes. It just seems like it's a stretch.
Yeah, they're saying, well, he committed all those crimes a while ago, and so nothing about like recent politics would have like kept him in, from doing what he did.
So it's not even a solid fact check. It's just, well, yeah, the guy's been in trouble a lot, but it wasn't our progressive policies that led to these issues. Well, it was. And then the other one that we covered here last week, this is so silly that somebody or any news organization would devote time, energy, and resources to going, no, see, that wasn't accurate. But that's how bad it is for Joe.
Yeah, so I think I had said, did you see him shaking hands with a ghost? And that's what the video shows. I mean, you can pull it up on YouTube. But now what they're saying, they analyzed the full 55 minutes of the video, and they said, well, if you were to zoom out, there are actually people over to his, to the left of the video, and he wasn't shaking hands with air, he was pointing, except you don't point with your hand looking like you're trying to shake someone's. If you were why wouldn't you be
And you don't move it up and down as if you are shaking somebody's hand.
Anyway, but they're like, no, he's not crazy. He wasn't shaking hands with a ghost. He was just pointing, and then he turned and he was pointing again. So I don't.
Maybe he wasn't shaking hands with a ghost. He was practicing his handshake.
Could be. Practice, because I might need this today. Somebody might actually want to shake my hand because Obama's not here, so people might actually want to talk to me today. But that's how bad it is. So whoever did this fact check watched the entire speech, watched it from different angles, and it's almost like they're going as a Zapruder film on here.
Right?
Now, we watched from this angle, and according to this angle, Joe, it looked like he was pointing. But then if you watch it from this angle at the 28:10 mark, he was doing something else.
Yeah, it's like a weird play-by-play type, replay situation where they're examining all the angles. But my point is, look at the guy's face. Regardless of what he's doing with his hand, he looks completely confused. If you're actually pointing at people, maybe you wave, whatever. You can tell on your face whether you know where you're at and what you're trying to do. He tries to shake someone's hand. He looks totally confused and then takes an immediate turn because he's like, oh, that was wrong. Let me turn around. I mean, just look at the dude's face.
That's all you need to know. And these fact checks that we gotta protect this guy. Crazy. Coming up, Fox News is here. Some high-ranking U.S. officials met with Zelensky at the Ukraine-Polish border over the weekend. They're going to have some highlights of what's coming up there. And we're going to look at some polling. So this 2022 U.S. Senate race here in Missouri, Hartzler and Schmidt, for what polls are worth, typically lead most of the polls. Are pretty much right there. But I wonder if some of the history of the gubernatorial race polls from 2016, prior obviously to the actual election, if those might be telling of what could be happening. That's one of the things we're going to be covering for you this morning. We'll do that for you at 7:10 here on 90.
Let's go. Wake Up Columbia. 93.9 The Eagle.
Then the fecal delivery, and saying that it was the dogs. And I could not agree with her. I'd lived with those dogs. I picked up their fun.
I'm hoping the Johnny Depp trial continues this week.
Oh, man. Have you seen some of the, I guess highlight reels would be the best thing to call them floating around the socials?
I'm ashamed to say yes.
It is like a farce.
It is. Well, and people say, well, how come we're paying attention to this? Why are people enamored with this? It's just another celebrity inside celebrity trial. But a couple of things. Number one, seldomly do you have a man saying, hey, you know what? These nasty allegations she's making about me, they are not true. And I think that's the biggest thing. You have somebody saying, you know what? I'm going to fight this. I'm not just going to offer a payment and hope it goes away. I'm going to stand up for this. And I think that's huge. And I think the other thing is, sure, we get glimpses into the lives of celebrities, but some of the more fascinating things we've learned that apparently in their household, not only did they have maids, like they had a maid that took care of each different floor of the house. In this particular story we heard there, apparently they got it. And I think the other thing is because it's talking about allegations made in a divorce. And people want to know, okay, I've been through a divorce. Sometimes divorces can be fine. Hey, let's sign the papers. Let's be good. And then usually they're not. There's a lot of stuff in there, and people want to hear the dirty. Is their divorce as weird as ours?
One of the pieces of evidence that they played in court was Johnny Depp has a recording from his phone of Amber, admitting to hitting him. And so it's kind of like, why is this even a thing? Of course, the internet isn't, the Bible or anything, but I have not seen a single person supporting Amber Heard on social media. Everyone is overwhelmingly team Johnny Depp.
So this audio that we heard is apparently they got into some disagreement, and Johnny takes off from the house, comes back, and there's a mess on the bed. And she was saying it was the dogs.
Ugh.
He's like, no, that wasn't the dogs. And you heard him say, I've cleaned up the dogs' fun before. Those were no dogs crapping on that bed, man. It was let's move forward. Hannah, the producers here.
Good morning. Are you getting squeamish?
Yes.
At your own story?
So that's what we're fascinated by. It's a guy who's saying, you know what you're saying is BS, and I'm going to fight this. It's kind of a unique look into a Hollywood marriage, and not a whole lot of other things happening in the news cycle right now, as evidenced by Fox on several days last week, going full bore on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. There is Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Did you forget her name?
Just about.
Wow. First you ignore Stephanie and I, and then you forget Stephanie's name. It's a rough Monday.
Sorry.
Come on, JJ.
And my name is
JJ.
JJ. Welcome into the show. Coming up at 7:10, we're going to be looking at polling from the 2016 gubernatorial race, because I remember this very vividly. You had at the time, it was Lieutenant Governor Pete Kinder, and as I recall, now he was in an interesting situation. Pete Kinder, the conservative Republican, was working, I want to say under, but not technically, but he was Lieutenant Governor while there was a Democrat governor in office. Jay Nixon and Pete Kinder would come on this show, and man, we could talk about whatever it was he was doing, and all we'd have to do is like Brad Trinago and I can bet, Brad, watch this, I'm going to piss off Pete Kinder, and I'd ask him about Jay Nixon, and that Jay, I wrote him a letter. I mean, every time, that's all you had to do, like to set him off, is to ask him about Jay Nixon. And Pete Kinder, man, he'd throw no punches, no holds barred, and he would just go off. So anyhow, we're going to look at some of the polling from the 2016 gubernatorial race to see if that might be any kind of indicator in the Republican Senate race for 2022. This is a race that the nation is paying attention to. By the way, Roy Blunt, he was asked on CBS over the weekend about that, and we labeled it playground politics. Playground politics, this whole thing with Kevin McCarthy apparently saying that Trump should resign in a conversation. It's playground politics. National news outlets wouldn't know it by the way the breathless coverage they gave it. Roy Blunt was asked about that. We're going to find out how he responded coming up 7:10 here on 93.9 The Eagle, the oldest one of these. I don't even care how old the thing is. I just love the name for this thing. It's over 21 years old, and apparently, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, it's the oldest one of these alive.
The oldest Chihuahua. Apparently, its first name was Peanut Butter. But then they changed it to Toby Keith.
Toby Keith. Dog. Hannah, when were you born? April 22nd?
April 21st of 2000.
All right. So then less than a year later, Toby Keith was born. January 9, 2001, Toby Keith.
Of course it's a Chihuahua. I feel like those things live forever.
And apparently they live like 12 to 18 years.
And apparently people can't believe how good he looks for his age.
Dog looks good for his age. I like that when I had people come up and say, man, your dog looks good. Good looking dog. And I always say thanks. Like I had something to do with it. No genes involved there. Polling from the 2016 gubernatorial race, how it could affect our Senate race coming up 7:10. Hi, I'm Brandon Rather for the Better Business Bureau. You know, I think I always say I am, but I think really everybody here on the show, you know how we are big fans of you, the small local business owner. You do everything at your disposal to put forward a good, clean, honest living, help your family, and add to the town. And people say, well, what else can I do? One of the things that you can do as a business owner, you have resources at your fingertips to help your business grow. And these are resources provided by the Better Business Bureau. And you can learn more about these resources and how to become accredited online at bbb.org. bbb.org. So typically, a company standing with a BBB gives consumers a third-party validation, and it holds businesses accountable, and it improves the level of service at accredited companies, and it gives some folks, some potential customers, some insight into what you do. Learn more, bbb.org.
The U.S. is giving Ukraine even more aid. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
The first step in winning is believing that you can win.
Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, after going to Ukraine with Secretary of State Antony Blinken for face-to-face talks with President Volodymyr Zelensky.
We don't know how the rest of this war will unfold, but we do know that a sovereign, independent Ukraine will be around a lot longer than Vladimir Putin's on the scene.
Referencing Russia's leader, the U.S. is providing $165 million worth of ammunition and $300 million in foreign military financing, and Blinken says American diplomats will return to Ukraine next week. Now, they traveled to Kiev by train, and today Russia bombed at least 5 train stations. This as talks broke down again, trying to secure a humanitarian corridor to let trapped civilians leave Mariupol, a Ukrainian city Russia's bombed to near ruins. Some Republicans are taking a trip to Texas today, angry over President Biden's plan to end a Trump-era policy. Congressman Michael Guest tells Fox if Title 42 is lifted,
we can very well lose situational control along certain parts of the board.
Dozens of Democrats in Congress also agree and oppose a change change, fearing a new surge.
Right now, Title 42, the policy that expels illegal migrants from the United States, citing COVID concerns, will end May 23rd. That's less than a month away.
Fox's David Spunt. The Supreme Court will huddle up today, considering a religious liberty case.
Joe Kennedy was an assistant high school football coach at Bremerton High, but was told by school officials to stop publicly praying after games. They cited policy against indirectly encouraging students to engage in religious activity. He continued to pray, was placed on leave, and not rehired. Kennedy sued, but lower courts ruled against him.
That's Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. They'll start to pick a jury today to put another accused Capitol rioter on trial. A Marine veteran and retired New York City police officer Thomas Webster is the first riot suspect to be tried on an assault charge. America's listening to Fox News.
Here's NFL legend Terry Bradshaw.
This is it, your last chance to win big money from Publishers Clearinghouse.
There are just days left to enter to win. $7,000 a week for life on April 30th.
Yep, you got to enter PCH.com before it's too late. Real people really do win, and time's running out if you want to be next. It's your last chance to enter, people. Come on, let's go. Hurry, enter at PCH.com. $7,000 a week for life. Last chance. Enter now at PCH.com.
Entries due 4/28. No purchase necessary. Void or prohibited.
And now a small business setback, delivered by a kind French stranger.
Monsieur, there was an accident. The windshield of your catering van is, how do you say, kaput? But Progressive has an extensive network of repair shops. Now, we sing about the old days. Brave marin revient de guerre.
When things go wrong with your small business, it's comforting to know you have Progressive Commercial. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Croissance for everyone. Brave
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Covered subject to policy terms and conditions.
.939 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 7:03. It is Monday. It's April the 25th, 2022. Sunny 45 here in Columbia. It's going to be a beautiful day today. It's going to be a little chilly this morning. Our high around 58 and then clear tonight with areas of frost. Low near 34. Good morning, everyone. Here's some of the stories we are working on for you on this busy Monday morning. A Columbia man is under indictment this morning for first-degree murder for the March shooting death of his father on Pinecrest Drive. A Boone County grand jury indicting 21-year-old Samuel Brotherton for first-degree murder and armed criminal action. The indictment replaces earlier charges. Brotherton will be arraigned tomorrow morning at 8:30 before Judge Joshua Calvin Devine. The Columbia Police Department's probable cause statement says Brotherton called 911 in March to say he decided to shoot his father after an argument. The court document's unclear on what the argument involved. 64-year-old Roland Thompson of Columbia pronounced dead at a local hospital. Columbia's police chief will be heading to Jefferson City this afternoon. He'll be discussing public safety with Missouri's governor, Mike Parson.
The governor's spokeswoman, Kelly Jones, tells 93.9 The Eagle that this afternoon's meeting will take place at the state capitol. It will be a closed meeting. Governor Parson and Columbia Police Chief Jones will also discuss solutions for the law enforcement workforce. Columbia voters approved a use tax earlier this month, which is expected to generate $5.6 million annually in additional revenue. City Finance Director Matthew Liu has said that Columbia could fund and maintain 7 new firefighters and 8 new police officers with the use tax revenue. Don Luzader, 93.9 The Eagle.
Don, thank you. A convicted Columbia murderer who was sentenced to 40 years in prison for murdering his neighbor back in 2020 blasted his own attorney in open court during Friday's sentencing hearing, saying he did a horrible job. That was a direct quote. I was in the courtroom when he said it via video. 56-year-old David Myers, convicted of second-degree murder for the 2020 death of his neighbor Anthony Lockwood. This murder happened on a street called Sycamore Hills. It is north of Columbia. Family members of Myers and Lockwood were in the courtroom. Security very tight at the Boone County Courthouse. Much more on this case. The murder weapon itself was actually burned after the murder. It was either a pole or a stick or a combination of a pole or a stick. Much more on the story. 939theeagle.com. I will warn you, some of the information in court, very graphic, that is in the web story as well. Mid-Missourians will have an opportunity this evening to see an award-winning documentary about about autism, specifically the first man diagnosed with autism in the United States. The event is sponsored by Mizzou's Echo Autism Communities. It's a program at Mizzou. Dr. Kristen Soul of Echo Autism Communities says doors will open at Columbia's Forum Christian Church at 5:15. The movie starts tonight at 6 o'clock.
And we'll have the filmmakers there. They'll be there to answer questions, talk about the making of the film, talk about all of the different aspects of that.
Now, the first man ever diagnosed with autism in the United States is now elderly. He lives in a rural town in the state of Mississippi. Dr. Soul says you'll enjoy the movie. Love Coffee will be selling cookies, drinks, and popcorn this evening. No cost to attend the movie. You can simply show up. And we have more on this, 939theeagle.com. Easter Seals Midwest has announced that the annual Bowling for Autism Columbia event will now be known as the Cleek Bowling for Autism event in recognition of the work and generosity of businessman John Cleek Jr. and his late father. They died in March. John Cleek Jr. started the event 19 years ago, the audience cheering Saturday when the announcement was made about the name update. Mr. Cleek tells 93.9 The Eagle that Saturday's event raised more than $30,000. Additional numbers are still being calculated. And Missouri's bipartisan House Agriculture Policy Committee will head across Highway 50 today. They'll tour agricultural facilities at Jefferson City's Lincoln University. The tour will start at 1:30. You'll recall that Lincoln's programs received national attention in February when USDA Secretary Tom Vilsack traveled to Lincoln to announce a $1 billion federal program aimed at battling climate change and strengthening rural communities. Secretary Vilsack, a former governor of Iowa, praised Lincoln's facilities. Today, the bipartisan House Ag Policy Committee will head to the same location. They'll take that tour at 1:30 today. The chairman of the committee is Don Roan. He's from Portageville, ranking Democrat Emily Weber. She is from Kansas City. 93.9 The Eagle News is brought to you this morning by the Candy Factory in downtown Columbia. Candy Factory, downtown Columbia. They have everything mom wants for Mother's Day. 93.9 The Eagle News time is 7:07. In sports, Reds beat the Cardinals Sunday at Great American Ballpark. 4-1 the final there. They snap an 11-game losing streak. Adam Wainwright, 2-2 on the year. Good article on Cardinals.com about Adam Wainwright and specifically pitching in that ballpark. For whatever reason, Great American Ballpark, he has struggled there, has not had great success. He's quoted in there saying they've had his number, they being the Reds. Tommy Pham, 2 hits, 2 RBIs for Cincinnati. St. Louis finally back at home after 11 games on the road that had at least one rainout. They're at Busch tonight. 3-game series with the Mets starting this evening. First pitch, 6:45, 93.9. The Eagle first pitch there in the pregame at 5:45. Royals lose to Seattle yesterday, 5-4 in 12 innings. Royals are off today. Sports is brought to you this hour by Betts Jewelers. They're in downtown Columbia for gifts that last a lifetime. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 7:08. All right, John, thank you. Right now we have clear skies, 46. It's 7:09, 93.9 The Eagle and 93.9theeagle.com. Our traffic is presented by MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people to find a job or post your job opening today. Roads have been pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. That road work between Jeff City and Columbia will get back to work today. They had some issues last week because of the rain. They'll be back out there working today. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes and breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
Will you lose control of Congress?
Elizabeth Warren being asked, will you lose control of Congress in the upcoming midterms 2022? Took her a while to answer, but eventually.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. That's it. Yep. a little bit of an explanation, but pretty much the reporter asked her, said, "You going to lose the midterms 2022?" Yeah.
I think they have to set their expectations realistically, right? And it's always better to go in and just saying like, yeah, we think we're going to lose. And then when they do lose, they're like, yeah, we told you we knew it. You know, this happens every year in the midterms after we elect a president. And then they can kind of save face.
And I think now, of course, this is the most important election in our lifetime. But seriously, man.
The question is to what magnitude are they going to lose, right? And, we'll see. Hopefully in Missouri we can do the right thing on the U.S. Senate race and not make it a contested race at all.
We should be fine. It's interesting. I think it was the New York Times. They were doing kind of like, I don't know, it was a panel or something. They'd reached out to a bunch of Democrat lawmakers and aides. The New York Times, they sent out an email and somebody responded. One of these Democrat spokespeople or whatever responded to a request from the New York Times for an interview, said, "Are you calling to ask me about our impending doom?"
Impending doom.
Impending doom. So we actually have some of the responses that they got. So New York Times sending out, "Hey, we want some comments on this." Some of the responses, "Are you calling to ask me about our impending doom?" One Democratic strategist quipped at the outset of a recent phone call. Progressive consultant says the vibes just feel very off.
It's going to be a terrible cycle for Democrats, says someone else.
What you're seeing is people feeling like it's time to head for the lifeboats rather than trying to steer the ship.
Oh, no.
And the other thing that we're hearing is so now apparently the Democrat strategy is, hey, not how many seats can we take in the Senate and in the House. How many seats can we not lose? That's the new game plan. I have a friend years ago, and he was doing the online dating, and he wasn't having much luck. And what we told him was, you need to broaden your horizons.
Was this you?
No.
Are you doing that whole, I'm asking for a friend when you're really the friend?
No, I have done very little with online dating. But we said, you got to broaden your horizons. And we start telling him, and he says, what I hear you guys saying is I need to lower my expectations. It's kind of broaden your horizons, lower your expectations. And right now it appears that's what Democrats are doing. And one of the races that's on the tongues of a lot of the talking heads nationwide is this 2022 U.S. Senate race. Roy Blunt been there for a while. He's obviously big national identity when it comes to his name. So Stephanie and I kind of got to looking at some old polling. What if we went back to like 2016, the gubernatorial race? Because that was a pretty stout race. And the reason I wanted to look at that, again, for what polls are worth, and I'm not saying that 2016 is going to tell us what's going to happen in the 2022 U.S. Senate race, but you can't deny there are some similarities, and the similarity back then is you had this wild card guy by the name of Eric Greitens, who was a veteran, served his country valiantly. Now, we've learned since then he's fudged, according to other folks in the Navy SEALs, he fudged his military record. He has since kind of skirted campaign finance election laws with his charitable foundation. But still, he served our country. He's done great work. A lot of people, myself included, like his political acumen. But he was in this race at the time, and it was trailing in the polls. Now, it was prior to really any of the big ad campaigns coming out, because I know apparently there's an ad attacking Eric Schmidt. It's a mailer talking about how he's spent with his money in China. Well, it has to do with something with Lambert Airport in St. Louis.
The China Hub.
The China Hub. Right. And that's put out by a super PAC that supports Greitens.
Yeah, so if we wind the clock back to May of 2016, so about this time in the primary, we'll call it around this time, so you had Kinder and Bruner, who were basically in a dead heat for the win. They were at 26 and 20%. Catherine Hanaway was in the middle at 12%, and then Eric Greitens was a nobody, at 7%. So who's polling at 7 right now? Billy Long, maybe?
Yep.
And, I mean, he's obviously... he's not a nobody. Eric Greitens was a nobody at that time because he had never run for office before. But polling, people would have said he has no shot, right? And that was May. So then the ad started. People started to get more familiar with the candidates. And 7 weeks later, in July, now remember, so 1 month out from the primary, so July of 16, It was then between Eric Greitens and John Brunner. Eric Greitens had jumped to the front from 7% to 29%, and he was trailed by Brunner at 22%. Catherine Hanaway was about the same, 16%, and it had flipped. Peter Kinder was now in the very bottom at 12%. That was just less than 2 months change.
And some of the other things that are congruent is, so the fears as we started getting closer to the gubernatorial primary in 2016 was somebody could potentially win this with very, very little support, in effect, and what was kind of shaping up to be a tight four-way race. And that's one of the fears, again, in this 2022 U.S. Senate race, that somebody could lead this, could come out of there with like maybe even 19% of the vote and be the nominee.
Yeah, and I said that to someone that I was talking with recently about, we heard from Congressman Long on the show, I think 2 weeks ago, that he had learned that Schmidt had bought a bunch of advertising for close to the election over in Kansas City, and that he had suspected that would be negative ads against Congresswoman Hartzler. And, based on that, so if Schmidt's running ads against Hartzler and Greitens' PAC is running ads against Greitens, who does that push up versus who does that push down? I'm sure there are people out there who know. I have no idea. I'm trying in my mind to roll that around in such a crazy primary. And I honestly, I don't know.
I think the one thing to keep in mind about 2016 is that on the Republican side, at least people on the inside, everyone thought at the beginning it was going to be Peter Kinder. It was just it was a slam dunk. He was going to be the guy, and he had won 3 terms. And most of those times, the only Republican to win statewide. But Greitens and John Brunner got into a ugly, there was a recorded phone call. I don't know if you guys remember. It was really ugly. Nasty. I mean, between the two of them, and Greitens' temper was on display on that tape, but it seemed to catapult him, and he just came out of nowhere to win that in that. And I'm going back to look here. He won the primary with 34% of the vote. It wasn't as close as people would think. But the interesting thing, too, about 2016 is the two main gubernatorial candidates were both had changed their parties. Chris Koster was a Republican for all of his career, very prominent. I mean, he was going to be the next attorney general on the Republican side. He ended up switching parties. Eric Greitens was a Obama delegate and ended up running as a Republican. So it was an unusual election, and 2016 went obviously very red across the state.
Yeah, but you think about this. So you had said, that Brunner, and Greitens, these folks had gone really negative. And so, yeah, I mean, here it's like what happens, because right now I think Schmidt and Hartzler feel like they're leading the pack. So what if the two of them go really negative at each other? I assume everybody will be going negative against Greitens. But...
And it's hard to say. I think that's possible.
One of the things that really surprises me about this race is Billy Long is not doing better, and I get it. He's got great name recognition in Southwest Missouri, current congressman, reps the Springfield, Joplin area, and really all of the candidates really well qualified. They've got they've got the conservative. There's really the political aspect of the candidates. Very little that's different with the bigger names in the race. It's becoming more the personal things. By the way, Kansas City Star, shame on them. What was it, last Sunday? They put out an article about Vicky Hartzler and religion and stuff on Easter Sunday, by the way. But and then they were talking about some of the comments that she made at Boone County Lincoln Days, and kind of was painting her as kind of like a religious zealot, or like attacking her for having Christian beliefs. I'm like, my goodness, these people. It's like this guy in Washington State. SCOTUS is hearing this case, the guy who was praying, and that they're painting this guy to be a wacko because he was praying. Now, he wasn't praying. He may have potentially been putting the school in harm's way by leading students in prayer. You can't do that legally. The question in that case is, okay, was he leading students in prayer, or was he just privately praying and then students joined him? But the point being that those progressives, they'll paint you, if you have a belief in some kind of God, whether it's whatever your God is, whoever your God is, but if you have a belief in some God, they attack you. They make people think they try to attack you like you're weird. Kansas City Star did that to Congresswoman Hartzler.
Oh yeah, they're super mad. I guess there was some Christian group on a plane that was singing a Christian music, and they're like, "You don't want, LGBT stuff in your face, and here you're singing a Christian song on an airplane." I've always wanted to run into a flash mob at an airplane or in an airport or on an airplane. I think that would be so cool. And I don't care whether you're singing Justin Bieber or some hymn. I just think it would be a neat experience. I think I would enjoy it. I like to see people having fun, but liberals are so triggered that someone would have the audacity to sing a hymn on an airplane. And, if we're going down, I hope someone's singing a hymn, honestly. But maybe, but anyway.
All right, so Elizabeth Warren on why she thinks Democrats are going to get the tail ends kicked in the midterms 2022.
Yeah, I think we're going to be in real trouble if we don't get up and deliver. Then I believe that Democrats are going to lose. Democrats win when they work on behalf of working people.
That's right. So this stuff about you have to call somebody by however they identify and all these make-believe issues that they focus on. Meanwhile, there was a real issue at the southern border. And they're focusing on make-believe stuff. Somebody wants to be identified as a chick even though they're not. And you have to. That's what we're hanging our hats on.
Well, and previously we heard them saying we have to scare the Democrat voters, and part of this, it's the end of the world, it's doom and gloom or impending doom, is they know that their only hope is to turn out a whole bunch of people in the midterms, and I think part of this whole stuff about the midterms and these comments they're making are to do just that, to scare their folks, saying it's impending doom, you got to get to the polls. It just goes right in line with their message.
And that's why I think they're just let these people across our porous border because
if you could make one rule that everyone had to follow, what would it be?
Atterbury Auction and Realty Company. What a gem this is. Atterbury Auction and Realty Company. Check out the website, atterburysells.com. For example, one of the things you'd find right now, there's an estate auction, and you'll find a lot of these. But the things that you would find in this estate auction, a John Deere Select Series X534 multi-terrain riding lawnmower, roping saddle, washer, and dryer collector's items. So here's a couple of things that are surprising people. There's been several. Number one, the way Atterbury Auction and Realty Company is changing the game. This stuff is all online. AtterburySells.com. AtterburySells.com. And there's preview events for some of these properties. But the other big thing that's surprising people, sometimes folks think, if it's in an auction, it's not high quality. That is not the case. So this is what I'm asking of you this morning. Just check it out. Poke around on there. Check it out. AtterburySells.com.
Wake Up Columbia. News, analysis, opinion, and Hannah the producer. 93.9 The Eagle.
Good morning. It's 7:25-ish, which means it's
Wow, it's 7:27.
continual improvement.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
It means it's time for What's Hot with Hannah on 93.9 The Eagle.
I've asked a question on the Wake Up Columbia Facebook page, and that is, if you could make one rule that everyone had to follow, what rule would you make? And Brandon, I think you're really going to like Angela's comment. She said her rule would be that you have to wash your hands with soap and water after going to the bathroom and before cooking or handling others' food.
Yes. I can't say.
Do you feel seen?
When I'm at somebody's house and they go and they start cooking and they don't wash their hands first, it wigs me out, man. I'm weird about that.
Do you still eat what they cook?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine would be turn signals. Turn signals are not optional.
Man, I'm like this close. I seriously, one day, I want to get out when somebody doesn't use a turn signal to turn. I want to get up. I want to follow and knock on their window. Hey, I just want to let you know, as a good Samaritan, I don't think your turn signals are working because you turned and your signal wasn't on. So I'm assuming it's just not working.
Is there a rule that you would implement for everyone if you could?
No rules. That would be my rule.
I feel like that would be a horrible idea.
Chew with your mouth closed.
Oh, that's a good one.
Be nice. Just be nice.
Aww.
Have fun. Chill out.
Aww.
Watch Netflix and chill. That would be my advice.
Oh, no. Okay. You are not in charge of making the rules from here on out.
I probably don't even know what that really means, I would assume.
No, you probably don't.
Shoes, real shoes, especially on airplanes. That should be a rule.
Yeah.
Coming up 7:35, the Defund the Police movement. How's that working in some of these cities like Minneapolis? And then the chief and the governor meeting today here in mid-Missouri. Details on that coming up 7:35.
Stop by Club Car Wash to get an unlimited membership for just $20 a month. See more details at clubcarwash.com and to find a location near you.
Fox News. I'm Chris Foster. Secretary of State Blinken and Defense Secretary Austin have met in person with Ukraine's President Zelensky about supporting his country's fight against Russia.
Antony Blinken announced that the U.S. Embassy would reopen in Kyiv, and Secretary Austin said that they would be training 5 battalions worth of artillerymen to use these 155-millimeter howitzers that the U.S. is flowing in.
Fox's Jennifer Griffin was on that trip to Ukraine. President Biden nominates Ambassador to Slovakia Bridget Brink, meantime, as ambassador to Ukraine. That position's been vacant since 2019. There have been more talks about Tesla founder Elon Musk buying Twitter.
Musk's initial offer of $43 billion for the social media company was at first viewed as unlikely to be successful, but then he was able to show more than that amount in financing, forcing Twitter to reconsider.
Fox's Lauren Blanchard. Musk uses Twitter and now owns about 9% of the company. America's listening to Fox News.
And now award-winning local news coverage with Brian Houseworth on 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 7:31 right now. We do have clear skies. It is 47 degrees here in Columbia. Our high today will only be around 58 degrees. We'll get some dry time as well. Good morning, everyone. Here's some of the stories we are working on for you in this 7 o'clock hour. Missouri's governor and the police chief of Columbia will be meeting this afternoon in Jefferson City to discuss public safety. Governor Parsons' spokeswoman Kelly Jones tells me the governor and the chief will meet at the Capitol this afternoon. It will be a closed meeting. Also talking about the issue of law enforcement workforce. Meantime, Jefferson City police say 7 of 9 people on that church bus involved in a crash yesterday sustained injuries. The incident happening at Highway 54 and 179. JCPD officers say the bus driver was driving too fast for the conditions. They're all from Keokuk, Iowa. Moderate injuries for the 7, 1 with minor injuries. An autism program affiliated with Mizzou sponsoring a free showing of an award-winning documentary about autism. It's called In a Different Key, the movie. It'll be shown this evening at 6, Columbia's Forum Christian Church. Mizzou professor Dr. Kristen Soule is executive director of ECHO Autism Communities. They're sponsoring tonight's event.
We can both learn more about autism, so what the symptoms are, and we can learn a lot about how we can work and embrace people who think differently than us.
Tonight's, again, the movie will start at 6, and Saturday's Bowling for Autism event in Columbia raising more than $30,000. News brought to you by Willett Dental Associates, WillettDentalAssociates.com. Our news time, 7:33. In sports, Reds beat the Cardinals Sunday at Great American Ballpark, 4-1 the final there. The Reds snapping their 11-game losing streak. Tommy Pham, pretty impressive for Cincinnati. 2 hits, 2 RBIs for Cincinnati. Cardinals back at Busch tonight. Weather should be good. Good day to get down and see the Cardinals as they will start at 6:45 tonight. If you can't make it, you can catch it, of course, right here in your home for the Cardinals in Columbia. 93.9 The Eagle. First pitch, 6:45. 5:45 pregame with Kevin Wheeler as the Cardinals open up a 3-game series with the Mets. And they'll have another series right after that at home against Arizona. Seattle beat the Royals Sunday in 12 innings, 5-4. Royals are off today. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 7:34. Traffic check with MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Find a job, post your job opening today. Roads right now pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you want to report a traffic issue, give us a call or a text, 573-874-9390. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes, and we have breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
For context, I think it's important to point out that before the audio was released, McCarthy said that the words were totally false. He's now said that the tape was taken out of context. We understand that he's spoken to former President Trump. They've mended fences. But you just heard the audio, Senator Blunt. Given the disconnect, how can Americans believe what the top Republican in the House says?
It's NBC's Kristen Welker talking to our senior U.S. Senator Roy Blunt. This has to do with something we covered on the show last week. Kevin McCarthy having a conversation with Liz Cheney in which the foreign left media is saying, oh my gosh, you hear this? Kevin McCarthy said he was going to ask Trump to resign, and they're missing some serious context. How did Roy Blunt answer that question? It's coming up shortly here on 93.9 The Eagle and 93.9TheEagle.com. This is Wake Up Columbia. There is Stephanie Bell. How was your weekend?
It was great.
Highlight?
Well, I hung out at the Midwestern Federalist Society conference in Springfield, Illinois, and so it was great. We learned, got to hear a bunch of good speakers. The Missouri Solicitor General John Sauer spoke. A lot of Missouri judges and other lawyers made the trip, and it was the inaugural conference. It was also on the 40th anniversary of the Federalist Society being founded, so it was fun to be with them all, and we got some cool tours. So we toured the Lincoln Library, Presidential Library, which I've never done before. Man, they must have spent a fortune on that place. If you haven't gone, it's worth a trip. I hope to take my kids back. And then we also got a tour of the Illinois Supreme Court. And that was amazing because it's so similar to the Missouri Supreme Court. Got to visit with some of their judges. But the similarities were incredible. The library, I was showing Brian a picture. If you've not been to the Missouri Supreme Court Library, you should go. Yeah. It's kind of 2 tiers, and there's like a glass floor, or like glass floor that like light comes through. Anyway.
Wait, hold on. Is the floor seriously glass?
Yeah, it's like a cloudy glass.
You can see
I have a picture
up in there?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And it's just beautiful if you've never been. And they just actually in Missouri restored the library. So if you and it's public, so you can go there and study if you're a student. If you just want to go there and read, it's just a beautiful space. Anyway, the Illinois version is like a smaller version of the Missouri. I showed the picture to Brian, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, that had to be. Maybe it was done by the same person."
It almost has to be, because when you showed me the pictures, I thought I was looking at the Missouri Supreme Court. I haven't seen the outside, but just that one picture you showed of the library and of the chambers, it looks almost identical. I'm assuming that is the same person that designed it, if not maybe the same firm.
Sure, and it's always just interesting to kind of compare and contrast with different states. So they actually elect their Supreme Court judges from different districts. They actually just redrew their Supreme Court district boundaries. So it was fun to talk just those issues with them.
That's Brian Hausworth, news director for the Zimmer Radio Group. Highlight of your weekend?
I would say the Bowling for Autism event. It's a great cause, and glad to participate. We had a lot of fun. Zimmer Communications sponsoring our group, and we appreciate that. We had fun as a team. The guys on TV make it look so easy. The spares and stuff. Fred Flintstone used to be able to hit those where they would those splits. If you remember,
the guys on TV, Fred Flintstone. He was a great bowler.
He and Pete Weber.
Yeah,
but they raised about $30,000.
Flintstone/Weber.
Exactly. They raised about $30,000 on Saturday. It was a great cause. Had a lot of fun.
Hausworth, word on the street is that you're pretty good at bowling.
I tell you, it is a lot of fun, and I left a lot of pins out there because I missed some spares, but I did enjoy it, and I could do better. It is great exercise. It really is, and my doctor has told me that it helps with vertigo and it helps with blood pressure, so it's good exercise. Just exhausting, but it's a lot of fun. It's kind of a challenge. It's very similar to golf because it really helps your hand-eye coordination.
Hannah, the producer, highlight of your weekend.
I got to spend some time with my mom Saturday, and then we spent a lot of time packing this weekend at my apartment.
Very nice. My name is Brandon Rather. Something we can do for you, let us know. 874-9390, 874-9390. So this thing, something I'd rather not even talk about, but I'm going to say it because just so you know, if somebody says, what about the conversation that Kevin McCarthy, and this is something we highlighted the audio last week, Kevin McCarthy having a conversation with Liz Cheney talking about then President Trump, and Kevin McCarthy saying in this audio that, well, I could have this conversation with Trump and suggest that he resign. I took it, I heard it, and to me, the way I take it, and maybe I'm not the best guy to be talking about it because I'm prejudiced. I have some preconceived notions. Maybe it's confirmation bias. But I took the spirit of the conversation and Kevin McCarthy saying this to Liz Cheney. Yeah, and I could have a phone call with him and I could ask him, maybe he should resign in this. I seriously put no serious stock in it. But it's like these crazy fact checks that the left is doing on income. Did a bird really poop on Joe Biden, or was that something else? They're doing fact checks on this stuff, man. We had to do a whole section on these fact checks. It's playground politics.
Well, and have you ever talked to someone who's kind of hysterical? They're all worked up, and you're like, yeah, I'll handle it. I'll make a phone call. You settle down. And, and try to appease somebody. So it's hard for me, when listening to the phone call, trying to figure out if he was really just kind of saying, yeah, you need to settle down. I'll handle it. You chill. And just trying to appease her as opposed to, like, really feeling that way, like, I'm going to call Trump and ask him to resign.
So NBC's Kristen Welker asked Senator Roy Blunt about this audio. And they're saying, well, so Kevin McCarthy said that he'd never said that. And they say, well, see, he's lying. Sure, it could be. I don't remember everything I've said, and I'm not trying to make excuses for Kevin, but I'm saying it's a possibility. The other thing, well, and that's the question from NBC's Kristen Welker. I mean, she's really overselling it. How can the American people trust this guy? So he said he never said it. Then the phone call came out, and then he's saying, okay, yeah, so I did say those words, but you're completely taking it out of context. Roy Blunt's suggestion to the question.
Well, a lot of people were saying a lot of things in that 2 weeks. I haven't talked to the minority leader in the House about this, but he's been close to Trump. Frankly, when I first heard this, I thought anybody who'd been as close to President Trump as Kevin McCarthy would know that the last thing that Donald Trump was going to do was either resign or quit. It was a pathway. We're 10 days to the end of his term.
So he goes on, I haven't talked to anybody and just kind of whatever. I call it playground politics. This is really, is what this is about. This is about, well, did you hear what so-and-so said about so-and-so? This is like third grade. Hey, did you hear Missy likes Brian? Well, Brian says she has cooties, so he ain't getting with me. It's playground politics. He said, she said. Really, nothing more to it. Interesting today, Jeff Jones, Chief of Police, Columbia, meeting with the governor. What's this about?
Well, this is about public safety. Of course, we have had some high-profile incidents in Columbia that we've profiled. You'll remember Orchard Lane a couple of weeks ago, a drive-by shooting, guy literally hanging out of a window and allegedly shooting and injuring, seriously injuring. She had life-threatening injuries. Young lady not far from McKee Street Park. We've had other incidents as well. I'm sure some of the crime will be discussed, maybe some of the downtown crime. The official topic is public safety. Specifics are confidential. I did check with Kelly Jones last night, the governor's spokesperson. Public safety will be the main topic, but they'll also, it's a closed meeting, so we don't know the exact time. It'll be this afternoon. But the other thing they're going to talk about, Brandon, and maybe more important, is the law enforcement workforce. And one of the things I covered right before the election was a use tax press conference, and the use tax was brought up. Matthew Liu, the finance director, said if it was approved, and it was, the city could fund and maintain 8 new police officers with the use tax revenue. So we'll see what happens. But it is worth noting that Chief Jones was a guest of Brian Treese as well, with the guest of the governor at the January 2020 State of the State address. So they've met before, but this is a one-on-one, the governor and Chief Jones. But I'm sure some of this recent crime is probably going to come up.
And it should, and that's fine. And if you can find a solution, great, because I know for years they've been trying to find it. Short-handed Columbia Police Department. As a matter of fact, Brian Hausworth and I recently toured the Boone County jail, and we talk about the shortages there and these things and how it affects people and the hoops they have to jump through in a jail when you're short-staffed and you're transporting people from these cells to these cells, and these folks are going to the video conference room for a court hearing. These people are getting out. Well, we only have X number of jailers. How are we going to play this chess game here? It's remarkable. And then, and then you do get the extra money. Nobody wants to be cops because of what the national news outlets have done to cops.
And keep in mind one thing, too, I saw an article over the weekend in the Kansas City Star that was talking about some unsolved cases. You can talk about those, there's no question, but let's also talk about all the cases that they have solved. Orchard Street, McKee Street Park. Dr. Yearwood himself, when we were at Brandon up there at the barbecue place, when he spoke about the bond issue, he pointed out the 3 suspects in the McKee Street. That was a different shooting, by the way, where a young lady was killed in her own home. Those were all CPS students. So they have the one down a week ago downtown where the guy from Jeff City, Arriaga, was arrested. And then we've had other incidents, again, the Orchard with the drive-by shooting. So they have solved them. They haven't solved them all, but one of the biggest issues, and they'll always, and everyone knows this, people are afraid to come forward. There's no doubt about it.
Well, in this article from the Kansas City Star over the weekend, I think Columbia Daily Tribune went after it too, and everybody says, well, we need to get churches and schools and all. We've been doing that stuff for years. We have been doing that stuff, and it doesn't work. Well, we need to invest more of government money into social services to root out the causes of this stuff, and we've been doing all of that stuff. And that's one of the bigger issues is what happens in a lot of these neighborhoods where these shootings take place. People don't talk. You would solve more crimes. So don't say we need to put more government money. We got to do this. We got to do that. So what we need to do is create an environment, number one, where these kids aren't doing this kind of stuff. And it usually is kids. And when I say kids, anybody younger than me. But we've been doing this stuff, the community, the church, and then we march and we hold the sign, stop the killing now, stop the violence now. It doesn't work.
Yeah, so you have to think creatively. If you've been doing the same thing over and over and it's not working, how can we do something different? And that was one thing about recruiting that I thought I've seen some new stuff from the Ashland PD recently. They started an Instagram account, and they've been putting together these videos for recruitment purposes. And so they've been kind of filming and saying this is what it's like to be a police officer. This is what it's like on the PD, trying to just reach a different audience and do something different, because they've been, with all that's said out there in the media about police, they're like, this isn't what our everyday life is here in Ashland, and we need to find new ways to recruit people. And I think in the same way, we need to think creatively about how we can, solve more of these things with people not coming forward.
One of the things that has helped, and by the way, I'm not so sure we can say that it is not working right now, because I'm at the courthouse every week, and they are they're charging people, they're making arrests, and a lot of I just was Friday. David Myers is going down for 40 years. I mean, that was a huge case. But with Elam, the guy that is accused of the Orchard Lane shooting, it was a drive-by shooting, middle of the day, 4 o'clock on a busy Saturday afternoon. The similarity between him and the one last week with Arriaga in downtown, the guy from Jeff City, downtown Columbia, they captured both of those incidents and put them both at the scene on surveillance cameras. So they've got them both on surveillance camera in the area, and that helps. I don't know how many witnesses are going to need to come forward when you have the video right now, so that helps.
Well, I think one of the other bigger issues when it comes to crime prevention and how we think about crime is racism. I do believe it's that, and I think it's people like Tracy Wilson Kleekamp, who was quoted in this story. We only talk about violence when it affects downtown, and when I think, and I'm quoting here, when I think of downtown, I think of white property interest. Realistically, how many people really think this is a white property interest? It's the racism of people like Tracy Wilson Kleekamp. So then whenever we do enforce the law, so we're not cracking down on shootings, it's, well, we don't care because it's just happening in black neighborhoods. Then when we do crack down on crime, well, you're roughing up the black kids and you're shooting the black kids. Nothing makes these people happy. And we can look at places, by the way, Austin, Texas, defund the police. They're now quietly giving money back to the police department. And here's why. Because defunding the police doesn't work. Minneapolis, kind of the birthplace of defunding police. The Parks Department, they severed their relationship with the Minneapolis Police Department because they didn't like what they were doing. Now they've had a change of heart because the Parks Department needs the help of the Minneapolis Police Department. They're saying, hey, the whole defund the police movement thing didn't work. Better way to deal with this kind of stuff. They didn't have this back in the day when I was dealing with it. I'm talking about new therapies, advanced, all-natural, regenerative treatments that give you relief, but also restore and repair damaged tissues for long-lasting relief. So you need at least learn more about these new biologic therapy solutions. You can get a free consultation. Call QC Kinetics, Kinetix, QC Kinetics, 573-545-5588. Call and ask why I'm interested about this QC Kinetics stuff, 545-5588.
People are talking about Brandon Rathert.
He's a jackass.
This is Wake Up Columbia, 93.9 The Eagle.
We are not saying don't come. We are saying don't come now, because we will be able to deliver a safe and orderly process to them as quickly as possible.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, some statements made several months ago. I think that's we're not saying don't come. We're just saying don't come now. Wait. One of the reasons I'm guessing there's a whole collection. So number one, there's a bunch of Democrats that are saying to Joe, hey, listen, you can't do away with this Title 42 at the border. You got to keep that in place because you don't have a plan otherwise. And probably the other reason, a large number of Republicans sending a letter to Alejandro Mayorkas over the weekend saying, dude, you got to resign because you're not doing anything at the nothing. I mean, really. The only time we hear about anything happening at the border, it's a Border Patrol agent, somebody from the Guard who drowned while trying to save illegal immigrants over the weekend. That happened. It happens whenever we talk about what's happening at the border, whenever we talk about that mom in New York stabbed like 87 times, stuffed in a duffel bag. Illegal immigrant is accused of doing that. So that's the only time in the border it comes up. They're not doing anything there. It's crazy. 874-9390, 874-9390. Columbia Police Chief Jeff Jones meeting with Governor Parson today. We're talking about this series of stories, series of articles, Kansas City Star, and I think the Columbia Daily Tribune has been picking it up too, but it's talking about gun violence. When was the last time you ever heard the phrase fist violence or knife violence? We don't hear that. We only hear gun violence. That's what Chris wants to talk about. Chris, welcome into the show. What can we do for you?
Oh, man, I was listening to that whole spiel you had for the end of the break there, and wow, good news, Brandon, huh?
Well,
good morning, everybody.
Hey, good morning. What can we do for you?
Yeah, here's the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Talking about this sales tax, the use tax, and they might use it for 8 police officers, or they could use it. I'm thinking, you can't trust these people when they say we will do it, much less when they say we could do it. If I remember this, like they think they're saying it's going to be $5 million, which I think is probably an exaggerated number. But, $5 million would get us 50 cops in this town fully equipped. They always use the figure of $100,000 a year, benefits, cars. Yep. And they don't think they can maybe squeeze 8 out of that?
Well, I think because that's the allocation of the money generated, there's an allocation that would go to law enforcement. I don't know.
Really? I thought it was just use tax money we were dealing with here, which I think we can spend any way we want here, except you divide it up to 90% for parks and fun stuff, and then maybe some for the cops.
Parks needs a 4th revenue stream, don't they?
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, we need more artwork. That's what we need.
Chris, thank you for the phone call. Hope that you have a great day. I do hear what you are saying. Coming up, 4th Congressional District candidate Bill Irwin's going to be joining us in the studio. Former law enforcement official, was in the service. He's been on the show before. He is back. By the way, you can get onto our website, 939theeagle.com. Who are you liking in that 4th Congressional District race? You can vote right now, and that's the only question. Who you liking? For what polls are worth? We'll have the results coming up later this week here on 93.9 The Eagle. Hey, I'm Brandon Rathert for Salter Lawn Service. Salter, one call does it all. So today, sunshine and 60 following periods of rain over the past few days. You know how quickly your lawn grows? Yeah. And you know how much folks in the lawn maintenance and landscaping industry are working right now? A lot. And when you are working at Salter Lawn Service, you get paid overtime, and they are looking for people right now. Salter Lawn Service. They're hiring experienced landscapers, irrigation techs, ground maintenance, and mowers to keep up with customer demand and Salter's growth. Now, I wanted to turn you on to this because when you are working for Salter Lawn Service, there is paid overtime. Imagine the overtime pay you'd get this time of year. Plus, there is paid vacation. You want to be outside, breathing fresh air, getting paid. That's what's going to happen when you are working for Salter Lawn Service. Salter, one call does it all. See their openings. Apply right now at salterlawnservice.com.
encouraging and effective. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. That's what Ukraine's president says about the face-to-face meeting he had with Secretary of State Antony Blinken with Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin.
We want to see Russia weakened to the degree that it can't do the kinds of things that it has done in invading Ukraine.
Austin says the U.S. is providing hundreds of millions more dollars in ammunition and military financing. He has since gone to Germany. Fox's Jennifer Griffin is there.
I'm here at Ramstein Air Base, and I just flew in with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin on a C-17 just hours after he met with President Zelensky in Kyiv. But the biggest news from that meeting was announced by Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
We will have American diplomats back in Ukraine starting next week.
And that has led to this.
President Biden is nominating Bridget Brink to serve as the top U.S. representative in Ukraine. The U.S. has not had an ambassador in Kyiv since 2019, and calls to fill that vacancy have increased since Russia's invasion.
Fox's Jared Halpern. Russia's leader Vladimir Putin says the U.S. is trying to destroy his country with unprecedented sanctions and failing, while his forces attack Ukrainian train stations and fuel facilities today. Former President Trump's lawyers returned to court today.
New York AG Letitia James has been investigating his real estate dealings, and if the judge rules in her favor, the former president could be fined as much as $10,000 a day. James says that out of 900,000 Trump Organization documents that have been turned over during her 3-year investigation, only 10 of those were from his personal business files.
Fox's Tanya J. Powers. Trump lawyers say he's fully complied. Air Force Major General William Cooley faces sentencing this morning at a base in Ohio, days after he became the first general officer convicted at a court-martial trial in Air Force history. Cooley found guilty of abusive sexual contact with a woman who faces jail time and a loss of rank, pay, and benefits. America's listening to Fox News.
Here's NFL legend Terry Bradshaw.
This is it, your last chance to win big money from Publishers Clearinghouse.
There are just days left to enter to win $7,000 a week for life on April 30th.
Yep, you got to enter PCH.com before it's too late. Real people really do win, and time's running out if you want to be next. It's your last chance to enter, people. Come on, let's go. Hurry, enter at PCH.com. $7,000 a week for life. Last chance. Enter now at PCH.com.
Entries due 4/28. No purchase necessary. Void or prohibited.
And now a small business setback. Set to smooth jazz.
It's late. You're driving in the rain with only one thing on your mind. The deer about to total your HVAC van. But with Progressive's 30-plus customizable coverage options, you're covered. The rest is just saxophone.
When running your small business gets rough, Progressive Commercial is there to smooth it out. Get a quote in as little as 6 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Twinkly sound.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Coverage and discounts not available for all vehicles or states. Policy terms and conditions apply.
.93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 8:03. We do have bright sunshine in Columbia. 46 is our current temperature. We're expecting a high today of around 58 degrees. Good morning, everyone, and here are some of the stories that we are working on for you in this 8 o'clock hour. A Columbia man is under indictment this morning for first-degree murder for the March shooting death of his father. It happened on Pinecrest Drive. A Boone County grand jury indicting 21-year-old Samuel Brotherton for first-degree murder and armed criminal action. This replaces earlier charges, so instead of charges, they're now in indictment. CPD's probable cause statement says Brotherton called 911 in March to say he decided to shoot his father after an argument. Columbia's police chief will be heading to Jefferson City this afternoon. He'll be talking about public safety with Missouri's Governor Mike Parson.
The governor's spokeswoman, Kelly Jones, tells 93.9 The Eagle that this afternoon's meeting will take place at the state capitol. It will be a closed meeting. Governor Parson and Columbia Police Chief Jones will also discuss solutions for the law enforcement workforce. Columbia voters approved a use tax earlier this month, which is expected to generate $5.6 million annually in additional revenue. City Finance Director Matthew Liu has said that Columbia could fund and maintain 7 new firefighters and 8 new police officers with the use tax revenue. Don Luzader, 93.9 The Eagle.
A convicted Columbia murderer who was sentenced to 40 years in prison on Friday blasted his own attorney in open court during the sentencing, saying that his attorney did a horrible job. 56-year-old David Myers was convicted of second-degree murder for the 2020 death of his neighbor Anthony Lockwood, who was stabbed 6 times in the back with either a pole or a stick or a combination pole-stick. Family members of Myers and Lockwood in the courtroom. Security was tight at the Boone County Courthouse. Prosecutors prosecutors did know that Myers has 4 prior convictions, one for felonious restraint, another for animal cruelty. Myers does claim self-defense. The prosecution did confirm that Anthony Lockwood, the victim in this case, did have meth in his system. In the end, Myers sentenced to 40 years. He indicated he will appeal. It's unclear if the current attorney, David Kirshner, will represent him in that appeal or not. Much more on this case, 939theeagle.com. Mid-Missourians have an opportunity this evening to see an award-winning documentary about autism, specifically the first man diagnosed with autism in the United States. It's an event sponsored by Mizzou's Echo Autism Communities. It's a program at Mizzou. Dr. Kristen Soul of the Mizzou Echo Autism Community says doors open tonight at Columbia's Forum Christian Church at 5:15. The movie will start at 6 o'clock.
And we'll have the filmmakers there. They'll be there to answer questions, talk about the making of the film, talk about all of the different aspects of that.
Dr. Soul says you'll enjoy the movie. She says Love Coffee will be on hand. They'll sell cookies, drinks, and popcorn. There is no cost to attend the movie. You can simply show up. Again, the location tonight, Forum Christian Church here in Columbia, and the doors open at 5:15. That has won a number of awards for documentary in several categories. Easter Seals Midwest has announced the annual Bowling for Autism Columbia event will now be called the Cleek Bowling for Autism event in recognition of the work and generosity of the late father, John Cleek Sr., and his son, John Cleek Jr. Father, in this case, Mr. Cleek Sr., died in March. He had ALS. John Cleek Jr. started the event 19 years ago. The audience cheered on Saturday, and the announcement was made about the name update. Mr. Cleek tells 93.9 The Eagle that Saturday's event raised at least $30,000. Additional numbers are still being calculated. More on this, 939theeagle.com. And Missouri's bipartisan House Agricultural Policy Committee will be taking a road trip today just across Highway 50. They're going to be touring agricultural facilities at Jefferson City's Lincoln University. That tour will start at 1:30. You'll recall it was right before a snowstorm that Lincoln's programs received national attention in February when U.S. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack traveled to Lincoln to announce a $1 billion federal program aimed at fighting climate change. He was at the facility and announced that at Lincoln University in February. Today it will be the House Agriculture Committee in Jefferson City that will tour those facilities. That is a bipartisan committee. Its chairman is Don Roan. He's a state representative from Portageville, and he is a Republican. 93.9 The Eagle News is brought to you in this 8 o'clock hour by Club Car Wash. ClubCarWash.com. Find a location near you. 93.9 The Eagle News time is 8:07. In sports, Seattle beat the Royals Sunday 5-4 in 12 innings. Royals are off today, and then they'll be back in action tomorrow. Reds beat the Cardinals 4-1 at Great American Ballpark on Sunday. Adam Wainwright now 2-2 on the year. Tommy Pham, 2 hits, 2 RBIs for the Reds. St. Louis back in action at home, finally getting home to Busch Stadium. 3-game series with the Mets will start this evening. First pitch 6:45 here on 93.9 The Eagle. Our news time, 8:08.
Hometown St. Louis.
Clear skies right now. John, thank you. Great work today. Clear skies right now and sunshine, 46. Traffic check with MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com to find a job or post your job opening today. Roads right now pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you want to report a traffic issue, give us a call or a text, 573-874-9390. Reminder, right after this newscast, we'll have a live interview with Missouri congressional candidate Bill Irwin. He's a Republican. He is from Lee Summit. He is seeking West Central Missouri's 4th congressional district seat. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes. Breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
Let me just say very clearly,
We are focused on meeting the challenge. We are focused on mission.
Let me be very clear. Alejandro Mayorkas is lying to you. He is with the Department of Homeland Security. He is the secretary for DHS. The border is closed. Another statement he's made recently, the border is closed. He's also said it's not a crisis. He is lying to you. Let me be clear about that. And this is a real problem. Listen, this thing, you got to call me by the gender that I want to be identified. And these lawmakers that are getting involved in all this kind of stuff, those are imaginary problems. You must identify somebody by the gender that they want to be identified. You mean, so I have to lie? I have to lie and refer to you as something that you're not? Those are BS problems. Millions of people coming into our country illegally. That is a real problem. The strain on our resources, that is a real here and now tangible problem. The problem is causing for our fellow Americans that live along the border, and every day they're getting up. Who's coming through our property today? Where's this? Where's that? Those are real problems, not imagined problems, not created problems. Those are real. Want to bring in Bill Irwin, 4th Congressional District candidate, Lee's Summit, Missouri. He's joining us on the show. Retired Navy SEAL combat veteran, 33 years of military leadership service, member of the State Department, SWAT officer, and an Eagle Scout. I like all these things in there, Bill. Combat veteran, leadership service, State Department, SWAT team, and an Eagle Scout. I like that you still include the fact that you were in the Scouts, man.
Hey, it builds your ethos for life. And what those Scouts do and the training they do, it's fantastic to see the development of our kids.
So let's say you get elected to the seat currently held by Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. You go to Washington, D.C., and some other lawmakers say, okay, Bill, welcome aboard, welcome to D.C. Any ideas on the border?
We got to secure that border. We did it between the border of North Korea and South Korea. I was there. I know the rat lines. We can secure our border tomorrow if we want to without adding new tax burdens to our taxpayers. We have troops in the United States Army and Navy that have to do a 2-week AT every year. We did this when I was in the Navy Reserves. We secured the border in Texas. We can do it with no additional taxpayer dollars, and we're going to train our military to do their jobs of securing our sovereign nation rather than teaching them how to wear high heels or something woke like that, like General Milley. That guy needs to be fired. And the other woke generals have to go too, and we can save a lot of taxpayer dollars with doing those kind of actions.
By the way, I want to ask you, I didn't mean to ask this, but I heard last week, apparently the Air Force has designated safe spaces for fighter pilots. So, and I don't know, an Air Force, both my parents were in the Air Force. Now, they were not fighter pilots. But I'm wondering, somebody in the military, safe space for people in the military? You were in the military.
That's ridiculous. And the problem is that we have the greatest military in the world, and our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, Space Force now, they follow orders. And when they don't follow orders, something's going to go wrong. So we have to have them following orders. And the problem is you have leading generals and leading guys like Austin. That's another guy that needs to go, that are giving them crazy orders to teach them how to be more woke rather than fight and win America's wars.
As a matter of fact, we're seeing wokeness, big issue, Disney, Florida, DeSantis, and so many other things right now, really, that's touching our lives. But I'm wondering, maybe I need to back up a little bit. Let's say you are elected to Congress, that 4th Congressional District out of Missouri, and you go in and, yeah, we need to secure the border. We know that. And you say there are ways that we can do it at no additional cost to taxpayers. Maybe the bigger challenge is not the physical aspect of the wall. It's trying to get these morons that think, oh, no, it's not a problem. There's no problem here. I'm reminded of the movie, the Naked Gun movies with Leslie Nielsen. And in the first one, there's the big scene. A fireworks factory is behind him, exploding and on fire, and he's going, oh, there's nothing to see here, nothing to. That's how our leadership in DC is handling what's happening at the border. How do you go to those folks that think we don't need to do anything and say, listen, here's the reality of what's happening, here's what it's really costing you? I think, how do we communicate that?
I'm glad you brought up Governor DeSantis. I actually worked with him in Fallujah when he was like Lieutenant J.G. DeSantis and our JAG over there. What a great guy. And his leadership is the type of thing we need to instill. Is what's the problem? Everybody's worried about some little thing when we have a worry about nuclear war and we have small nukes that the Russians may send into Ukraine. And if we wipe out all their production of food, do you realize what's going to happen in the world? We haven't even begun to see that.
Yeah, that's a very serious burgeoning issue in front of us that people are looking at. And I'm wondering, with Missouri, especially in mid-Missouri, the number of people that rely on agriculture, could it be a boon or a bust for them? Because there might be some advantages. But I want to make sure that we answer this question. So you worked with DeSantis, but how do you go to somebody of the opposing party and say, listen, here's why we need to clamp down on the border, man?
Thank you. I'm glad you circled back on that. I've sat down with the Taliban when I was in Afghanistan, actually boots on the ground, and try to work with them. We can work with the Democrats, but there are lines that need to be drawn. And there are 6 SEALs that are running for Congress, and there are 6 more men and women that are Special Forces trained that are running for Congress. And when I take my squad to Washington, D.C., and sit down with that Nancy Pelosi squad, I think there's going to be a different answer coming out.
All right. This is 4th Congressional District candidate Bill Irwin on 93.9 The Eagle.
All right, Brandon, thanks so much. Mr. Irwin, good to see you, and I appreciate you joining us live in studio. 2 quick, unrelated questions. Number 1, the map. Pretty basic question. You live in Lee Summit right now. As we talk, here we are. We're almost in May. We do not have a map right now, which is, I've never seen it happen before. But do you think, you're here campaigning obviously in Columbia, do you think Columbia will end up being in your in the 4th District at election time?
I sure would like to see it in my district because, I was a Mizzou Tiger at one time and I was a Mizzou cheerleader, M-I-Z-Z-O-U.
Mm-hmm.
I was there the night that the Tiger kicked the Jayhawk in the beak right in the middle of the basketball stadium or football stadium, Faurot Field. And I was the alternate Tiger at the time. That was when I became the Tiger. So, yeah, I'd like to see Columbia in our district. But the fact that they can't get a map is irresponsible. And then you got guys saying, I fight the fight, and you're going to run away from the job you're doing. Finish the job. Finish the map rather than just bailing on your job and going for a new job.
And if I could follow up to Brandon's question, because you have something on your website very powerful. The Columbia Police Chief is going to meet with the governor today. You write on your website, quote, this is an exact quote from you, law enforcement officers are leaving the profession at an accelerating rate due to movements like defund the police, in which city governments have vilified the law enforcement officers who are working to protect their cities. End of quote. Elaborate, sir.
It started in the Obama administration when they put a target on our law enforcement officers' back. And it's drained down, it's trickled down into all the first responders. And we're seeing the high rate of suicide amongst our law enforcement officers, our first responders, because they just don't have hope after the current administration with Biden vilifies them and Obama vilified them. This has to stop. Cops are noble professionals doing a great job serving the public.
Yeah, and we know people. So we talk about for Columbia, for example, a potential influx of cash to bring more officers onto the streets. That may not even be the issue. It's trying to get people to get into law enforcement. It's a bigger issue right now. There was a study that just came out, support of Black Lives Matters and calls to defund the police. A massive increase in Black Americans murdered was the result of defund the police movement. This, according to several different experts working, by the way, on different studies. And they're just looking at numbers. They're following the science. They look at the number of Black Americans that were murdered in 2019, and they're looking at the number of black murders that happened in 2020. More black people than white people murdered. Almost 3,000 more black people killed compared to whites. But the numbers have been going up since this defund the police. We had the story this morning. Minneapolis Parks Department says, hey, police department, we're sorry that we ended our relationship with you. We need you back. Austin, Texas. Hey, remember all that money we took from the police department? We're sorry. Here. have some of it back. So we know it's not working. The challenge is trying to dissuade these idiots from doing these things in the first place. I don't know how to do that.
You know, they're starting it at the higher education levels. When they say cops just go out, they don't see color. They go serve the public. It doesn't matter what color you are, they come and they help. If it's a traffic accident, they don't care. So this woke ideology that certain lives matter more than others has to stop. All lives matter. I don't care if you're black, white, red. Most people don't get that Jesus Christ was not a white guy. Jesus Christ was not a black guy. He was a Jew. And all lives matter. He died for us. And that's the bottom line. We need to go out there with the love of Christ, not the hate that we're seeing spewed up from the social media people.
Well, and I think the other problem is people that pretend to fight racism locally. We have a woman by the name of Tracy Wilson Kleekamp. She is the worst thing for the black community. She is the worst. She is the most racist person I know. And when she says things like this, Tracy Wilson Kleekamp, when I think of downtown, I think of white property interest. That is doing nothing to help. It is hurting, and it's racist, and it's incorrect. Bill Irwin, 4th Congressional District candidate, joining us this morning on 93.9 The Eagle.
Last week, I saw a bunch of posts about the fundraising in your race. So it looks like you're kind of, based on just the last quarter, in the middle of the pack, still raising a lot of money. What do you make of those latest fundraising numbers, and how important is fundraising to your race?
I love that question. You know, we're in the middle of the pack, but we just started on January 14th. So we're only been in this race a short time, and we're seeing a huge swell of support for this, and we're coming on fast. And fundraising is important. It's important because it's going to be the news blurbs and that kind of stuff that comes up that you got to pay for. So fundraising is important.
All right, before we let you go, what would you like to add?
The most important thing is I can make a difference. I'm a strategic planner, a team builder, and a decisive executor. But I need your all's vote, and I need your support. Failure's not an option. We fight. We will win. Send in the seal. Thanks for having me today.
Website?
IrwinForCongress.com. Good point. Thank you.
You're welcome. IrwinForCongress.com. Bill Irwin, 4th Congressional District candidate. Thanks for joining us on the Eagle.
Thank you much.
All right, coming up, Morning Bell business news with that little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give us. Do I already know what's coming?
You knew it.
All right.
You know what's coming. Elon, and more Elon.
It's all about Elon in the Morning Bell. It's coming up at 8:26 on 93.9 The Eagle.
It's been 1 week since you looked at me. Cocked your head to the side and said I'm angry. 5 days since you laughed at me, saying
Wake up Columbia with an eye on the world and a focus on you. 93.9 The Eagle.
Good morning. It's 8:27. Time for the Morning Bell business news with that little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
The Journal is reporting that a deal between Elon Musk and Twitter could be forthcoming today, which is a surprise because he had initially made an offer for Twitter. Then the board had enacted a poison pill, seemingly to kind of keep him off their backs. And apparently he had a number of video meetings with shareholders Friday. They've been working through the night, apparently, and it's a developing story, so we don't know, but we are expected. So, watch your phones today because there could be a big announcement. Apparently, Twitter shares rose more than 5% pre-market Monday. But we'll hopefully, you guys are going to have to step in for me on the Elon news this week because this is a big week. But no, so he's basically saying, hey, I can really help. He's meeting with shareholders saying this is a good price. You have a yes or no decision. We have some free speech issues. Elon would like to solve. There are some other things like an edit button. Purportedly, he's also talking about allowing longer tweets. And I don't know that I support that. That's kind of like the beauty of Twitter is
short to the point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, now people are doing like these long threads, which I do enjoy those. But I don't know that I would support longer tweets. But anyway, he's saying, here are my ideas. It's a good price. Let's work together. And, when he initially made the offer, there was some question about whether he would have the financing. We found out last week he secured the financing. So that, as well as, I guess, this pressure he's putting on the shareholders, has Twitter rethinking, reimagining their future together. And they might put a ring on it today, apparently.
We're broadening our horizons, as it were. And I think it's interesting because I'm looking at this with Elon Musk and Twitter and DeSantis and Disney, and conservative people and business is coming maybe to a head, or at least people are saying, hey, we ain't putting up with this anymore. As a matter of fact, we might look some more into that coming up at 8:35.
Stop by Club Car Wash to get an unlimited membership for just $20 a month. See more details on clubcarwash.com and to find a location near you. It's 45 degrees.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. Visiting Ukraine, Secretary of State Antony Blinken says American diplomats will return, led by Ambassador Bridget Brink, if she's confirmed by the Senate.
The U.S. has not had an ambassador in Kyiv since 2019, and calls to fill that vacancy have increased since Russia's invasion. Brink has spent nearly 30 years with the State Department and currently serves as the U.S. ambassador in Slovakia.
Fox's Jared Halpern. The Supreme Court today hears a case about a high school football coach who refused to stop leading on-field prayers. More Americans than not say they approve of the next Supreme Court justice.
The poll from the Associated Press and Nork Center for Public Affairs Research finds that 48% of Americans say they approve and 19% disapprove of the confirmation of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. The other 32% hold no opinion on the matter.
Fox's Tanya J. Powers. Judge Jackson joins the court this summer when Justice Stephen Breyer retires. America's listening to Fox News.
And now award-winning local news coverage with Brian Houseworth on 93.9 The Eagle.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 8:31. Right now we do have partly sunny skies. It is 47 degrees right now in Columbia. Our high today will be around 58 degrees. Good morning, everyone. Here's some of the stories we are working on for you in this 8 o'clock hour. Missouri's governor and Columbia Police Chief Jeff Jones will meet this afternoon in Jefferson City. They'll talk about public safety. The governor's spokeswoman, Kelly Jones, tells 93.9 The Eagle the governor and the chief will meet at the Capitol. It'll be a closed meeting. They'll also talk about solutions to the law enforcement workforce. A Mid-Missouri developer says everything is a go at Lakeside Ashland. It's under construction near Highway 63. Nick Parks, who founded Parks Amusements, tells 93.9 The Eagle CEO Roundtable that the outdoor movie theater is taking shape.
See the screen.
and we got to get electric to it here shortly to be able to put the screen panels up. And this is over 500 2-foot by 3-foot panels that makes up the screen.
Lakeside Ashland will also include a zip line, restaurant, playground. Park says they're also considering purchasing a Ferris wheel. They were in Florida looking at some of them. You can hear the full interview on our website, 939theeagle.com. An autism program affiliated with Mizzou sponsoring the free showing of an award-winning documentary about autism. It'll be shown tonight, 6 o'clock at Columbia's Forum Christian Church. No need to sign up. You can just show up tonight. Doors open at 5:15. And Saturday's Bowling for Autism event in Columbia raised more than $30,000. They are still calculating the final totals. Zimmer Radio, media sponsor for the event. It was held at the AMF Town and Country Lanes. News brought to you by Hemi Construction in Columbia. 93.9 The Eagle News Time is 8:33. In sports, Reds beat the Cardinals yesterday 4-1. Great American Ballpark as they snap the Reds to an 11-game losing streak. Adam Wainwright has never pitched well. He admits so at Great American Ballpark. 2-2 right now on the year. He actually gave up 8 hits. The Cardinals had 7, just could not. So 8-7 in terms of hit totals. Reds with a 1-hit advantage. Cardinals just could not get players across the diamond to score. That was the problem. Tommy Pham, 2 hits, 2 RBIs for the Reds. St. Louis finally back in action at Busch Stadium coming up tonight. They'll start a 3-game series with the Mets. First pitch is at 6:45. 93.9 The Eagle. Seattle beat the Royals Sunday in 12 innings, 5-4, and the Royals are off today. Sports is brought to you this hour by Atterbury Auction, AtterburySells.com. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 8:34. Traffic check with MidmoHires.com. Local companies looking for local people. For all you young millennials out there, Brandon and I, when we were kids, when we think
Brian, tread very carefully here, bud.
When we were kids, the Mets and the Cardinals, that was there was nothing bigger. Bigger. I mean, my goodness, there were some great matchups. Still a good team, but not the rivalry it once was. But enjoy the game nonetheless. If you want to report a traffic issue right now, call or text us 573-874-9390. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes, so we have breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
I applied, I paid, it was made, it was placed, and then a couple of days later it was removed by the mayor. And I'm not mad at her, but she just didn't. Should have thought it out a little better and consulted her city council again. And if they would have made the decision, no, you can't put that paver down there, when I applied for it, it'd be a different story.
That is Edith Vogel chatting with our news partners, ABC 17. Deborah Cooper Park is at Adrian's Island. They've got pavers, kind of like we have in the Children's Hospital. You donate X amount, you get your name in there. And apparently this Edith Vogel, she had a message that had mentioned the Confederacy and the Union, and the city, I guess, didn't take too kindly to that. And then they removed it. And they put it.
And if you recall, I mean, there was a stone on the east side of town that had a reference to the Confederacy, and the city council voted to remove the stone. That was earlier, but these were the pavers that like anyone can buy, and apparently there were other ones with like religious messages on them, Bible verses, and hers made this reference. I don't have the quote exactly, but anyway, made a reference to a general, and they decided to remove it.
Yeah, Joshua Blount at our news partner, ABC 17, you pulled the audio there. He did a very fair job Saturday night, really detailed, and he actually shows with the audio the video of exactly what the pavers say, and paraphrasing with the former councilwoman Edie Vogel, who her late brother, the former state senator Carl Vogel, she basically said that her family fought for the Union, and obviously it mentioned something to the extent of Sterling Price not attacking the Capitol. It's something.
I've got it. Union Camp Lilly notes, deciding against attack the Confederate Army under General Sterling Price, turned from Jefferson City October 7th, 1864.
That's what it says, right?
And our news partners did talk to the mayor of Jefferson City, Carrie Turgeon.
She certainly never came to council to ask for the pavers to be put back. Instead, she went the lawsuit route, which ultimately cost money for the citizens.
So that's Carrie Turgeon. So I don't know. They take exception because it was mentioning stuff about the Civil War. And, here's what I'm thinking, really. Very few people probably knew that thing was there. You know how many people know now? Because it's been in the news.
And why would she have gone back to the council? I mean, it does kind of shock me a little bit that, as conservative as Jefferson City is, as conservative as Cole County is, that, things at the city council, like removing the Daughters of the Confederacy stone, those kinds of things are, hot button issues. You think, and so, the mayor says, well, she should have just come and asked for us to put him back. Well, you were the ones who took him away in the first place. Like you're going to change your mind.
Is that cancel culture, in effect? Went and took the bricks out? Cancel culture?
No, I wouldn't call that cancel culture.
Welcome into the show. There is Stephanie Powell.
Good morning.
Mr. Brian Houseworth is here.
Good morning, sir. Good to see you.
Hannah, the producer, is here. My name is Brendan Rather. Something we can do for you, 874-9390. 874-9390. Did I tease something that we were going to be doing here at 8:35? Does anybody remember specifically? Did I say that we were going to do something here? Because I've got this. If not, I've got a backup plan. Over the weekend, Senator Elizabeth Warren asked this question.
Will you lose control of Congress?
Asking about the midterms. Everybody's talking about the midterms right now, 2022. So her answer kind of surprised me.
People make fun of me for using this term, but I think she should have used it here. Duh. It's one of my favorite words, and I think it's underutilized.
And so this is Senator Elizabeth Warren saying duh, but it takes her 28 seconds to say the word duh.
Yeah, I think we're going to be in real trouble if we don't get up and deliver. Then I believe that Democrats are going to lose. Democrats win when they do when they work on behalf of working people. And we can't just rest on what we've already done.
And you haven't really done anything to that end. You haven't really done anything. And when we're helping the American working people and everything they have done with the price, they've done the opposite. They're hurting the American worker, hurting the American family, but hanging their hats on, well, if so-and-so wants to be identified as a she, her, or it, that's what you have to do. That's what the kind of stuff they're focusing on. That's not real stuff at all.
No, real stuff is not having enough police on the streets and paying out the wazoo for gas.
Makes you want to swear, doesn't it? I heard this is one of the things that can make you want to swear more. Being at work. Now, thank goodness I don't have a job. I don't have to go to work somewhere. I get to come and play around here every day.
And you're also not allowed to swear.
I'm not allowed to swear. I don't swear. I try not to swear a whole lot. Depends on the company I'm in. Typically, I just don't like to use foul language.
A couple of months ago, you did on air on accident.
Oops.
Oh, and my dad was here?
Yeah.
I did.
It's an interesting question, and I stumbled upon an article recently in the Wall Street Journal about swearing at work, and they said, as we have gone away from kind of formality, if we've gone to remote work, as more people are wearing sweatpants and more people are working from home, are we, is our language also becoming more lax, and are we swearing more at work, and is it now more accepted? Obviously, we have rules here about swearing, but even I hear it more among lawyers. And I thought one interesting point in the article is you don't want to be the first person to swear. So if you're not sure if swearing is a thing at company culture or in a meeting, you just wait till someone else swears and then you match. So if they say a lower level swear word, you shouldn't up that, but that's how you can kind of get a feel. But there was a lawyer in there and said he thought he'd be the cool guy, and he told a story as a young lawyer and used the F word and still feels bad about it to this day, and people didn't take him seriously and thought he was kind of he feels like it hurt him. And I think that's probably changing in these days, and I think you have to know a time and a place. Obviously you're not going to use swear words in court, but I think the article's premise is probably true. As we've gotten more relaxed in wearing flip-flops to work, our language has probably gotten a little bit more relaxed as well.
I wonder, does that apply to all jobs, too? A pastor on Sunday, does he let occasional F-bombs drop while he's working from the pulpit? But I like that because don't you do that? And with a lot, but especially swearing, and probably with a lot of other things, especially when you're around a newer group of people, it's kind of like, all right, I got to wait till somebody else starts dropping swear words before I do it. I got to take the temperature of the room. Because, like, there's some professions I can't imagine that you would swear. I'm thinking like a doctor, for example. If I go to my family doctor, if numbers are low, Rathert.
Right.
You know? There's just some
There are. And I mean, I heard Mr. Houseworth say a swear word, and I said, oh my God, it's very rare for him, but it had to be something kind of shocking, right? And so I think, like, in news, probably you don't hear them say swear words very often, but I mean, it can also kind of, help you cut through, and make a point. And I think some people use swear words as a crutch because they don't have a very large vocabulary. So I think if you can, if people know that you're not just saying it because you can't come up with any better words, then it can be used effectively to emphasize a point.
Does anybody know the answer to this question? Why is it? Because I'll use, on the occasion that I use foul language, it's usually because I'm angry, I'm frustrated at something, and usually the receiving end of my foul language is my desktop computer. Poor thing. I'm sorry, buddy. Sorry if I triggered you with my foul words. But why is it that we seem to find some kind of relief when we're mad or angry? If we say a 4-letter word, it's like, whew, it's a release.
They have done studies on people who curse are able to withstand pain for longer. They've done actual scientific studies on this.
So, like, if I get mad and let's say Hannah does something and I go, oh, trucker, that does nothing for me. But if I say, oh, then I feel better because I used a different letter?
Apparently.
It's like a release valve. Coming up here on 93.9 The Eagle at 93.9theeagle.com.
Maybe we should just have like a safe space, a room where you can go and just yell cuss words. What do you think?
We could. Listen, at the 911 operations, Boone County Emergency Operations Center, they have those the rooms, like a decompression room, where people can go and do whatever. So we could have our safe space, and if we want to swear, we go in there and
yeah, shout out to all my elementary school friends who are taking the MAP test. This is what I was thinking about. They're taking the MAP test, so good luck to Southern Boone and everyone else who's taking the MAP test today. My son did say, we can bring a stress ball, with us and sit there and squeeze it for the test. But I know that can be, I feel like my kids were stressed, and I guess there's a lot of buildup, and there's pressure on the school to do really well. So for those folks, I don't think they get to just take a break from the test, but they do get to have, like, I think you said silent fidgets and stress balls.
So for all those kids that are listening while we were talking about a whole 10-minute segment on using foul language.
They're not listening, but I know there are a lot of parents out there that feel their secondary stress like me and had, lots of conversations over the last week and probably this morning about nervous kids going to school for the MAP testing. And I'm sure the teachers are nervous as well.
So good luck. We are pulling for you. Don't use any foul language. Coming up, we are just minutes away from the Gary Nolan Show here on 93.9 The Eagle. This is the time of day when my dad gets really excited. Plus, maybe we'll open up the fridge and see what's happening via leftovers today on 93.9 The Eagle.
I take care